If your stepmother ever called you ungrateful just for wanting the truth about your own mother, this story is for you. If your family rewrote the past until you doubted your memory, listen up, because the night my stepmother slapped me for one forbidden question, my godmother quietly took off her gloves, opened a file I never knew existed, and burned down the lies they built around me for 20 years. To understand the slap, you have to understand the silence that came before it. You have to go back before the party, before the file, before I had a voice. Let's rewind. I am 9 years old. It has been 1 year, 3 months, and 12 days since my mother died in a hospital in Oregon. Her death was a confusing, sterile event full of whispers I wasn't allowed to hear and a long drive north. My father, Robert, couldn't handle the memories in our small Portland apartment, so he sold it, along with most of her art supplies, and moved us to the Seattle suburbs. We were living in a beige rental house on a street with identical beige rental houses, and he was working too much. I was the quiet, sad new kid in 3rd grade. Then came Clarissa. She didn't appear as a villain. She appeared as a miracle. She was a friend of a friend from my father's new office. She showed up one Sunday with homemade 7-layer magic bars and a smile that seemed to fill the whole empty house. She was in the PTA, even though her son, Dylan, was already in middle school. She sang soprano in the church choir. She told my father, in a voice I was meant to overhear, "Oh, Robert, I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just want to help." And at first, she seemed to. Our beige house slowly filled with color, with scented candles, with throw pillows, with the smell of pot roast. She organized themed dinner nights. "It's Tuscan Tuesday," she would announce, and my father would produce a genuine, rusty laugh I hadn't heard in a year. I was cautious, but I was 9, and I was hungry for a family that felt less like a shipwreck. The change was subtle. The gaslighting started not as an explosion, but as a slow, quiet leak. It began with my mother. "Dad," I asked one night during Tuscan Tuesday, "do you remember that time Mom took me to the beach and we found all those purple sand dollars?" The silence was immediate. My father's smile faltered. He looked down at his pasta. Clarissa, halfway through lifting a glass of wine, set it down. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with a syrupy, concerned kindness, "I think your father is still very sad about that. Why don't we talk about something happy? Dylan, tell Robert what you got on your history report." And just like that, the conversation was rerouted. My memory, my question, was filed away under things that hurt Dad. I learned, very quickly, that any mention of my mother, her name, her favorite color, her laugh, was met with that same stiffening. The adults would freeze. The subject would be changed. My mother was not a person. She was an inconvenience to the new, happy narrative. Clarissa never hit me. She was too smart for that. Her weapons were quieter, sharper, and left no visible marks. She used isolation. My 10th birthday was coming, and I was invited to a sleepover at my best friend Sarah's house. It was the first real friendship I'd managed to build since the move. I was vibrating with excitement. I told Clarissa I needed a ride. "Oh, honey," she said, not looking up from her laptop, where she was organizing the church bake sale spreadsheet. "I'm afraid you can't go." "Why not?" "You know what you did," she said, still typing. I had no idea. I searched my 9-year-old brain. Had I left my shoes out? Forgotten to feed the fish? I don't know. She finally looked up, her face a mask of disappointment. "You had an attitude this morning when I asked you to clear your plate. We've talked about this. Actions have consequences. Madeline, maybe next time you'll remember to be grateful." I begged. I cried. I promised to be grateful. It didn't matter. The consequence was absolute. I stayed home, listening to the silence of the house, while Sarah and my friends watched movies and ate popcorn. The next week, I overheard Clarissa on the phone with one of her new friends. "It's just so hard. Karen," she sighed. "Orphans are always so demanding. They have this bottomless need for attention. I'm just trying to teach her boundaries. The holidays became a masterclass in public humiliation. Christmas morning, Dylan, who was now my stepbrother, would be presented with his big gifts in front of everyone. A new gaming system, a snowboard. Clarissa would film his reaction, oohing and awing. My gifts were always practical, a new set of encyclopedias, sensible winter boots, and they were never under the tree with Dylan's. They would be handed to me later, quietly, in the hallway or on the stairs. "This is from your father and me," she would say, forcing the box into my hands. "I hope you understand how much we do for you. A simple thank you would be nice." It wasn't a gift. It was a transaction, a reminder of my place as a burden she was graciously carrying. I learned to live in the margins of their new, perfect family. I learned to be quiet. But the questions about my mother never went away. They just burrowed deeper. "Dad, why did we really move from Portland?" I asked him one afternoon when Clarissa was at her book club. He hesitated, a pained look on his face. "It was just too hard. Maddie, too many memories." "But what about—" The front door opened. Clarissa was home early. She took in the scene. Me, my father, the old Portland photo album I'd snuck out of a box. Her smile was thin. "Robert, darling, I need you. The landscaper is here and he's asking about the hydrangeas. Right now." He shot me an apologetic look. "In a minute. Clarissa." "Now, Robert, he's on the clock." My father, a man who built bridges for a living, could not stand against this woman's will. He closed the album and went outside. Clarissa turned to me, her smile gone. "You need to stop this," she said, her voice a cold, sharp whisper. "You are hurting your father. You are selfishly dragging him back into a sadness he is trying to escape. Do you want him to be unhappy, Madeline? Is that what you want?" I flinched as if she had struck me. "No." "Then you will stop. This obsession with the past is unhealthy. Your mother is gone. We are your family now." Then there was Jenna, my godmother, my mother's college roommate and best friend. Jenna was from a different world. She lived in a high-rise in Portland and was a partner at a law firm. She visited 4 times a year, always on a weekend, and her arrival felt like a state visit. She would sweep in wearing a perfectly tailored suit, smelling of expensive perfume and leather. She always wore gloves. Sometimes they were soft, buttery leather. Other times, elegant silk. She said it was a habit, but it felt like armor. She was the only person Clarissa seemed nervous around. Clarissa would put on a frantic show of hospitality, baking fresh scones, brewing coffee, laughing too loudly. "Jenna, so wonderful to see you. We are all doing so well, just thriving." Jenna would just smile, a cool, polite smile that never quite reached her eyes, and hand me a gift, not sensible boots. She brought me hardbound sketchbooks with thick, creamy paper. She brought me professional-grade charcoal pencils and imported watercolors. "For your art," she'd say. "Your mother always said you had her hands." Jenna saw it. I know she did. She would scan the living room, her eyes cataloging the changes. The walls were a gallery of the new Price Harris family. Clarissa and my father, Clarissa, my father, and Dylan, all 3 of them on a ski trip. The one, small, framed photo I had of my mother, a candid shot of her laughing on a boat, kept migrating. First, it was on the main bookshelf. Then it was on a side table, on one of Jenna's visits. I saw her find it, tucked behind a large, gaudy table lamp, obscured. The next time she came, it was gone entirely. When I was 13, I was brittle with unspoken questions and teenage anger. Jenna took me for coffee. Just the 2 of us, at a cafe downtown. It was one of the rare times I was allowed to be alone with her. I stirred my hot chocolate, the silence stretching. "She took Mom's picture down," I said, not looking at her. "The one from the boat. It's gone." Jenna's hands, gloved in black leather, were wrapped around her mug. She didn't respond. "Why won't anybody talk about her?" I finally asked, the question exploding out of me, louder than I intended. Why does everyone pretend she never existed? Why does Clarissa hate her so much? Jenna was silent for a long moment. I could see the muscles in her jaw working. just a tight clench behind her polite, public expression. She put her coffee down. "Your mother," she said, her voice very soft, very precise, "was brilliant, and she was my best friend, and she knew people might try to erase her." "Then why do you let them?" I accused, the hot tears finally coming. "Why do you let her?" Jenna met my eyes. Her gaze was intense, not cold, but heavy. "Madeline, I made your mother a promise, a very specific, legal promise, that I would let you be a child, that I wouldn't drag you into a fight you weren't ready for." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "But I made her another promise, too, that when you were old enough, and when you came to me yourself and demanded the truth, I would give it to you, all of it. I have everything. Madeline, I have it safe. When you are ready to see, I will show you." I didn't understand. I was 13. I wanted answers, not riddles. I wanted my mom's picture back on the shelf. I went home feeling more confused than ever, and that's when Clarissa delivered her masterstroke. I kept my most private, precious things in an old shoebox under my bed. It wasn't much. A few faded photographs, a ribbon from my first-grade art fair, a small beaded bracelet my mother had made, and the most important thing, the thin, plastic hospital bracelet from the day I was born, with her name, Anna Price, printed on it. I came home from school on a Tuesday. I went to my room, and I knew, instantly, that she had been in there. The air was different. I looked under my bed. The shoebox was gone. I ran downstairs, my heart pounding. Clarissa was in the kitchen, humming along to the radio, chopping celery. "Where is it?" I demanded. "Where is what, honey? Goodness, what's all the yelling about?" "My box, the box under my bed. Where is it?" She clicked her tongue, a sound of mild annoyance. "Oh, that? Madeline, I was deep cleaning your room today. It was chaos in there. I threw all that old trash out. It was just clutter, sweetheart." "Trash?" My voice was barely a whisper. That wasn't trash. It was just an old shoebox full of junk, old papers, that grubby old bracelet. It's time to let go of that stuff. Honey, we're making new, happy memories now, remember? I ran out. I ran to the curb. The garbage trucks had already come. It was gone. All of it. Wiped out. Erased. I didn't cry where she could see me. I went back to my room, my chest feeling like it had been hollowed out. I sat on my bed, in my sterile, deep-cleaned room. But as I sat there, my hand brushed against something else under my mattress, where I'd hidden it after Jenna's last visit. It was the jewelry box she had given me for my 13th birthday. It was velvet, a deep blue. It was not what I was looking for, but as my fingers traced the lining, I felt something hard and flat, tucked deep within the satin. I pulled at the seam, and my fingers closed around it. It was a key, a small, strange, old-fashioned key, the kind for a safe deposit box. It was attached to a simple, worn tag. I couldn't make out the faded writing on it. I had no idea what it was for, or what it meant. I only knew that Jenna had given it to me, hidden, and that Clarissa hadn't found it. That night, I lay under my covers, clutching the small, cold piece of metal in my palm. Downstairs, I could hear Clarissa and my father laughing at something on TV. Their laughter sounded loud and bright and sharp, and I felt a certainty settle into my bones, a cold, hard, 13-year-old certainty. My real life, the one that belonged to me, was locked away in a box somewhere. And this woman, this stranger who was making my father laugh, had just proven she would do anything to keep me from finding it, to understand the slap. You have to understand the silence that came before it. You have to understand the 20 years of careful, deliberate erasure. You have to go back before the party, before the file, before I had a career or a voice. Let's rewind. I am 9 years old. It has been 1 year, 3 months, and 12 days since my mother died in a sterile, white hospital room in Oregon. Her death was a confusing, muffled event. full of whispers I wasn't allowed to hear and a long, quiet drive north. My father, Robert, a man who built bridges for a living but couldn't seem to span the chasm in our own home, couldn't handle the memories, our small, light-filled Portland apartment, the one with paint splatters on the hardwood floor and wind chimes on the balcony, was sold. He sold it, along with her easel, her boxes of canvases, and most of her art supplies. He moved us to the Seattle suburbs, to a beige rental house on a street with 50 other identical beige rental houses. It smelled like new carpet and dust. He was working too much, disappearing before I woke up and coming home long after dark, his face gray with exhaustion. I was the new kid in 3rd grade, the quiet, sad one with the wrong shoes, adrift in a sea of beige. Our house was a ghost house, holding just 2 ghosts, waiting. Then came Clarissa. She didn't appear as a villain. She appeared as a miracle. She was a friend of a friend from my father's new office, a widow from his church. She showed up one Sunday afternoon, not in a cloud of brimstone, but in a cloud of Chanel No. 5, carrying a Pyrex dish of homemade 7-layer magic bars. Her hair was a perfect, immovable blonde helmet. Her smile was wide and bright, and it seemed to fill the whole, empty house. She was in the PTA, even though her son, Dylan, was already in middle school. She sang soprano in the church choir. She told my father, in a warm, concerned voice that I was clearly meant to overhear, "Oh, Robert, you poor thing. You can't go on like this. I'm not trying to replace anyone. Goodness no. I just want to help. A girl needs a woman's touch." And at first, she seemed to... Our beige ghost house slowly, systematically, filled with color. Her color. Scented candles appeared on every surface, smelling of ocean breeze and summer linen. Throw pillows in shades of burgundy and forest green were scattered on the sofa. The smell of pot roast and garlic powder began to replace the smell of dust. She organized themed dinner nights. "It's Tuscan Tuesday," she would announce, serving spaghetti with jarred sauce and garlic bread. My father, hollowed out by grief, would produce a genuine, rusty laugh I hadn't heard in over a year. He looked at her like she was the sun. I was cautious, but I was 9, and I was starving for a family that felt less like a shipwreck. The change, the real change, was subtle. The gaslighting started not as an explosion, but as a slow, quiet, odorless leak. It began with my mother. We were at Tuscan Tuesday. I had a good report card, and I was feeling brave. "Dad," I asked, swirling my spaghetti, "do you remember that time Mom took me to the coast and we found all those purple sand dollars? And she said they were mermaid money?" The silence was immediate. It was a physical thing, like a heavy blanket dropping. My father's fragile smile faltered. He looked down at his plate, his fork frozen. Clarissa, halfway through lifting a glass of white Zinfandel, set it down with a careful, deliberate click. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with a syrupy, concerned kindness, "I think your father is still very, very sad when he thinks about that time. It hurts him. Why don't we talk about something happy? Let's stay in the present. Dylan, tell Robert what you got on your big history report." And just like that, the conversational drawbridge was pulled up. My memory, my question, was locked away in a dungeon, filed under Things That Hurt Dad. I learned, very quickly, that any mention of my mother, her name, her favorite color, her laugh, her art, was met with that same stiffening. The adults would freeze. The subject would be changed. My mother was not a person. She was a grenade. She was an inconvenience to the new, happy narrative Clarissa was writing for us. Clarissa never hit me. She was far too smart for that. Physical bruises fade, but the ones she specialized in were permanent. Her weapons were quieter, sharper. She used isolation. My 10th birthday was coming, and I was invited to a sleepover at my best friend Sarah's house. It was the first real, genuine friendship I'd managed to build since the move. I was vibrating with excitement. I had my sleeping bag rolled up by the door, my pajamas packed. All I needed was a ride. "Oh, honey," Clarissa said, not looking up from her laptop, where she was organizing the church bake sale spreadsheet. I'm afraid you can't go to Sarah's. My stomach dropped. What? Why not? You know what you did, she said, her fingers still tapping away at the keys. I had absolutely no idea. I frantically searched my 9-year-old brain. Had I left my shoes by the door? Forgotten to feed the fish? I don't know. I promise I'll be good. She finally looked up, her face a perfect mask of gentle, loving disappointment. You had an attitude this morning when I asked you to clear your plate. We've talked about this. Madeline, actions have consequences. When you show disrespect to the family, you lose privileges. Maybe next time you'll remember to be grateful for everything we do for you. I begged. I cried. I promised to be grateful for the rest of my life. It didn't matter. The consequence was absolute. I stayed home, sitting in my room, listening to the silence of the house, watching the clock tick past 8, then 9. I pictured Sarah and my other friends watching movies, eating popcorn, telling secrets. I wasn't just being punished, I was being edited out. A week later, I was supposed to be in bed, but I crept out to the landing to listen. I heard Clarissa on the phone, her voice lowered to a confidential, martyred purr. It's just so hard. Karen, she sighed. Orphans, they are always so demanding. They have this bottomless, empty pit of need. It's exhausting. I'm just trying to teach her boundaries. Honestly, I feel like I'm saving Robert. He'd let her manipulate him into misery if I wasn't here to be the strong one. The holidays became a masterclass in public humiliation. Clarissa loved a crowd. On Christmas morning, all our relatives and her church friends would be there. Dylan, who was now my hulking, sullen stepbrother, would be presented with his big gifts in a loud theatrical ceremony, a new gaming system, a snowboard, a laptop. Clarissa would film his reaction, oohing and aahing. My gifts were different. They were always practical. A new set of encyclopedias, a sensible winter coat, 2 sizes too big, and they were never under the tree with Dylan's. They would be handed to me later, quietly, in the hallway or on the stairs, away from the guests. This is from your father and me, she would say, forcing the plainly wrapped box into my hands. Her smile was tight. I hope you understand how much we do for you. A simple thank you would be nice. Madeline, we expect you to show proper gratitude. It wasn't a gift. It was a transaction. It was a bill for services rendered, a reminder of my place as a burden she was graciously and visibly carrying. I learned to live in the margins of their new, perfect family. I learned to be quiet. But the questions about my mother, about me, never went away. They just burrowed deeper. One Saturday, I found my father alone in the garage, sorting tools. This was rare. Clarissa was at her women's ministry brunch. It was just us. Dad? I asked, my voice small. He looked up, surprised. Hey, Maddie girl, what's up? I was just wondering, why did we really move from Portland? After she, He stopped, a wrench in his hand. He looked pained, his eyes clouding over. Maddie, it was just too hard. Too many memories. But what about her art? I pushed, feeling a rare surge of courage. What about all her paintings? You sold everything. Why? He looked like I'd struck him. He opened his mouth, but before a single word could come out, the door from the kitchen flew open. Robert, darling, thank God you're here. Clarissa bustled in, her perfume preceding her. The gutter guy is here, and he's asking about the downspout on the west side, and I simply don't know what to tell him. I need you, right now. My father, a man who designed highway overpasses, looked at her, then at me. In a minute, Clarissa, I'm talking to Madeline. Now, Robert, he's on the clock. It's costing us money every second we stand here. He shot me an apologetic, helpless look, a look I would come to know very, very well. Sorry, kiddo. And he was gone. Clarissa turned to me, her smile gone, replaced by a cold, sharp blade. You need to stop this. she said, her voice a furious whisper. You are hurting your father. You are selfishly, cruelly dragging him back into a sadness he is trying so hard to escape. Do you want him to be unhappy, Madeline? Is that what you want? Because that's what you're doing. You are tearing him apart with this morbid obsession. Your mother is gone. We are your family now. Act like it. I flinched as if she had struck me. No, I just stop. It's unhealthy. Then there was Jenna, my godmother, my mother's college roommate, her ride or die. Jenna was from a different universe. She lived in a glass-walled penthouse in Portland and was a partner at a corporate law firm. She visited 4 times a year, always on a weekend, and her arrival felt like a state visit. She would sweep in wearing a perfectly tailored black suit, smelling of expensive perfume and leather, and she always wore gloves. Sometimes they were soft, buttery kid leather, other times elegant black silk. She said it was an old habit, but it felt like armor. Jenna was the only person on earth I ever saw Clarissa seem nervous around. The moment Jenna's Audi pulled up, Clarissa would launch into a frantic, high-pitched performance of hospitality, brewing fresh coffee, pulling out the good cookies, laughing too loudly. Jenna, so wonderful to see you. We are all doing so well, just thriving. As you can see, Madeline is so happy here. Jenna would just smile, a cool, polite, assessing smile that never quite reached her eyes, and hand me a gift, not sensible boots. She brought me hardbound sketchbooks with thick, creamy paper. She brought me professional-grade charcoal pencils, imported watercolors, books on graphic design. For your art, she'd say, her gloved hand resting on my shoulder for just a second. Your mother always said you had her hands. Don't let them get lazy. Jenna saw it. I know she did. I would watch her. She would stand in the living room, holding her coffee, and her eyes would do a slow, meticulous scan of the room, cataloging, assessing. The walls were a shrine to the new Price Harris family. Clarissa and my father on a cruise. Clarissa, my father, and Dylan at Dylan's graduation. All 3 of them on a ski trip, beaming. The one, small, framed photo I had of my mother, a candid shot of her laughing on a boat, her hair wild, kept migrating. First, it was on the main bookshelf, then, on a side table, on one of Jenna's visits. I saw her find it, tucked behind a large, gaudy table lamp Clarissa had bought, almost completely obscured. The next time Jenna came, it was gone entirely, vanished. When I was 13, I was a raw nerve, brittle with unspoken questions and a simmering, powerless teenage anger. Jenna took me for coffee, just the 2 of us, at a Starbucks downtown. It was one of the rare times I was allowed to be alone with her, a privilege Clarissa had fought. But Jenna, we have a perfectly good coffee machine at home. I stirred my hot chocolate, the silence stretching. She took Mom's picture down, I said, not looking at her. The one from the boat. It's gone. She's thrown it away. I know she has. Jenna's hands, gloved in black leather, were wrapped around her mug. She didn't respond for a long moment. Why won't anybody talk about her? I finally asked, the question exploding out of me, louder than I intended, making a woman at the next table look up. Why does everyone pretend she never existed? Why does Clarissa hate her so much? And why do you let her? Jenna was silent. I could see the muscles in her jaw working, just a tight clench behind her polite, public expression. She put her coffee down. Your mother, she said, her voice very soft, very precise, was brilliant, and she was my best friend, and she was not naive. She knew. She knew people might try to erase her. Then why do you let them? I accused, the hot tears finally coming, a teenager's tears of rage and confusion. Why do you let her? Jenna met my eyes. Her gaze was intense, not cold, but heavy, like a judge's. Madeline, I made your mother a promise, a very specific, legally binding promise, that I would let you be a child for as long as possible, that I wouldn't drag you into a fight you weren't ready for. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. But I made her another promise, too, that when you were old enough, and when you came to me yourself and demanded the truth, I would give it to you, all of it. I have everything. Madeline, I have it safe. I have the receipts. When you are truly ready to see, I will show you. I didn't understand. I was 13. I wanted answers, not riddles. I wanted my mom's picture back on the shelf. I went home feeling more confused and angry than ever, and that's when Clarissa delivered her masterstroke. I kept my most private, precious things in an old Nike shoebox under my bed. It wasn't much. It was my only link. A few faded photographs from Portland that had survived the purge. A ribbon from my first grade art fair. A small beaded bracelet my mother had made, with little bluebirds on it. And the most important thing, the thin plastic hospital bracelet from the day I was born, with her name, Anna Price, printed on it in faded black ink. It was the only thing I had left that had her name written on it. I came home from school on a Tuesday. I went to my room, and I knew, instantly, that she had been in there. The air was different. It smelled faintly of lemon polish. I looked under my bed. The shoebox was gone. I ran downstairs, my heart pounding so hard I felt sick. Clarissa was in the kitchen, humming along to a soft rock station, chopping celery for Tuscan Tuesday. "Where is it?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Where is what, honey? Goodness, what's all the yelling about? Use your indoor voice." "My box, the Nike box under my bed. Where is it?" She clicked her tongue, a sound of mild, maternal annoyance. "Oh, that? Madeline, I did a deep clean of your room today. It was an absolute disaster in there. I threw all that old trash out. It was just clutter, sweetheart." "Trash?" My voice was barely a whisper. My hands were numb. "That wasn't trash. That was my mom's. That was my hospital bracelet." She sighed, as if I were a particularly slow student. "Honey, it was just an old shoebox full of junk, old papers, that grubby old plastic bracelet. It was probably covered in germs. It is time to let go of that unhealthy stuff. Honey, we are making new, happy memories now. Remember? Why would you want to hold on to old trash?" I ran out. I ran to the curb, my breath catching in my chest. The garbage trucks had already come that morning. It was gone. All of it. Wiped out. Erased. I didn't cry where she could see me. I walked back to my room, my body feeling hollowed out. I sat on my bed, in my sterile, deep-cleaned room. But as I sat there, shaking, my hand brushed against something else under my mattress, where I'd hidden it after Jenna's last visit. It was the jewelry box she had given me for my 13th birthday. It was velvet, a deep, midnight blue. It was not what I was looking for, but as my fingers traced the inside lining, I felt something hard and flat, tucked deep within the satin. It was a flaw in the perfect lining. I pulled at the seam, and my fingers closed around it. It was a key, a small, strange, old-fashioned key, the kind for a safe deposit box. It was attached to a simple, worn tag. I couldn't make out the faded writing on it. I had no idea what it was for, or what it meant. I only knew that Jenna had given it to me, hidden, and that Clarissa hadn't found it. That night, I lay under my covers. Long after the house was dark, I clutched the small, cold piece of metal in my palm until it was warm. Downstairs, I could hear the faint murmur of the television, and then Clarissa's laughter. That bright, confident, winning laugh. It was the sound of someone who believed they had tidied up the last loose end. And I felt a certainty settle into my bones. A cold, hard, 13-year-old certainty. My real life, the one that belonged to me, was locked away in a box somewhere. And this woman, this stranger who was making my father laugh, had just proven she would do anything to keep me from finding it. High school was when Clarissa truly perfected her craft. It was the golden age of early social media, and she wielded it like a weaponized scrapbook. Our family life, as curated by her Facebook albums, was flawless. There they were. The Price family ski trip, a series of bright, snow-glared photos from Whistler. There was Clarissa, arm in arm with my father, both in new ski suits. There was Dylan, midair on a snowboard, the picture of athletic, all-American boyhood. There was the cozy cabin, the roaring fire, the mugs of hot chocolate. I was not in these pictures. I was never invited on these trips. Every New Year's Eve, it was the same ritual. Clarissa, Robert, and Dylan would pack their expensive luggage for a glamorous resort. Whistler, Vail, Lake Tahoe. I was left behind. The excuses were always vague, delivered with a sigh of pragmatic concern. "Oh, honey, the condo only sleeps 3. It's just impossible." "You'd be so bored, sweetheart. It's all adult skiing." "We just can't stretch the budget for a 4th plane ticket this year." "Madeline, you understand. Your father's bonus wasn't what we'd hoped." So, I spent my New Year's Eves alone in the big, quiet suburban house. I'd be 15, 16, 17 years old, listening to the neighbors set off fireworks, watching the ball drop on TV by myself. Clarissa would post a photo at midnight, the 3 of them clinking champagne glasses. Dylan had sparkling cider, with a caption, "Ringing in the new year with my wonderful family. So blessed, missing our Maddie, who's holding down the fort at home." The comments would flood in. "Such a beautiful family, Clarissa. You are a saint. Tell Maddie we said hi." She was a genius. She didn't just exclude me. She framed my exclusion as a noble sacrifice I was making for them. In her online narrative, I was a recurring character, a bit player in the sitcom of her life. I was the artsy one, or, more often, our moody teenager. She would post a photo of me at a family barbecue, caught mid-blink or looking away, and tag it with a winking up public caption. "Here's the family's resident brooder. LOL. She's probably composing a tragic poem in her head. We love her anyway." It became an internal joke for her friends, for the church group. I wasn't Madeline. I was the sulky one. My silence, my discomfort, my grief. It was all rebranded as a quirky, difficult personality trait. I was a prop she used to show how patient and loving she was. "She's a challenge," I heard her tell a friend over coffee. But a blessing. One New Year's Eve. When I was 16, the loneliness was a physical ache. I was scrolling through pictures of them in Vail, my stomach tight with resentment. My phone rang. It was Jenna. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice crisp. "Nothing. Watching TV. Dylan just posted a video from a hot tub." "Pack a bag. I'm sending a car. You're coming to Portland." An hour later, a black town car was outside. I felt like a spy defecting. I spent the weekend in her glass-walled penthouse in Portland. It was the Auntie Clarissa, minimalist, clean, smelling of old books and expensive coffee. There was no clutter, no potpourri, no fake Tuscan decor. We didn't go to a fancy party. We ordered 3 kinds of pizza and ate them on the floor of her living room, cross-legged on a Persian rug. She opened a bottle of fancy root beer for me and poured herself a single glass of very dark red wine. "Your mother loved pizza," she said, pulling out a huge, worn-out photo album. Not a scrapbook, an album. The pictures were old, from the 90s. There was my mother, her hair wild and dark, her face bright and laughing, wearing ripped jeans and a flannel shirt. There was my mother, covered in clay, flipping off the camera in a pottery studio. There was my mother and a 20-year-old Jenna, arms slung around each other at a protest, holding a sign I didn't understand. "She was so real," I whispered, tracing a photo of her. "She was the realest person I ever knew," Jenna said quietly, her gloved hand resting near the page. We sat there for hours, past midnight, as she told me stories, not tragedies, funny stories, stories about my mom sneaking a stray dog into their dorm, about her painting a mural on the side of a building that was supposed to be demolished, about the time she tried to cook Thanksgiving dinner using only a hot plate and set off the fire alarm. I laughed until my stomach hurt. I laughed without performing. I laughed until I cried. And Jenna just let me, handing me a tissue without a word of syrupy comfort. It was the first time I felt like I was related to someone. That weekend, she gave me my first professional drawing tablet. It was an expensive Wacom, the kind I'd only dreamed of. "I've been following your anonymous art account," she said, not looking at me, pretending to organize her desk. My heart stopped. What? "Your line work is good. Your understanding of shadow is intuitive, but you're hiding," she turned. "You have your mother's eye, Madeline. You see the details other people miss. The things that are hidden underneath. It's a gift. Don't you dare lose it." When I got back to Seattle, the hammer fell. Clarissa had found out. She must have called my phone, found it off, and pieced it together. She didn't yell. She went straight to my father. I was summoned to the family room. My father looked exhausted and miserable. Clarissa sat beside him on the sofa, her face a mask of wounded, tearful betrayal. "Madeline," my father started, rubbing his temples. We are very concerned about Jenna's influence on you." "She's tearing this family apart. Robert!" Clarissa burst out, as if on cue. "She is actively undermining me. She swoops in with her money and her expensive gifts and tries to turn my own daughter against me." "She's not your daughter," I said, the words out before I could stop them. Clarissa gasped, a hand flying to her chest. You see what she's doing? She is poisoning you against your own family. She's a bitter, jealous woman who could never have a family of her own, so she's trying to steal mine." "That's not true," I yelled. "We just ate pizza." "She's filling your head with lies about the past, isn't she?" Clarissa pressed, her eyes narrowing. "Telling you terrible things about me?" "We talked about my mom." "Exactly." Clarissa stood up, triumphant. "She is dragging you back into that unhealthy obsession. Robert, are you going to let this happen? Are you going to let that outsider destroy what we've built?" My father, the bridge builder, the man who hated conflict more than anything, looked at me. His eyes were pleading. "Maddie, please," he said, his voice low and tired. "Just ease up on the Portland trips for a while. It's upsetting, Clarissa. It's making things difficult here. Can you just do that for me? For the sake of the family?" I looked at him, at this man who was supposed to protect me, and I saw him for what he was. A coward. He was choosing her performance of peace over my actual sanity. "Fine," I whispered. I went to my room. Jenna didn't stop, though. She just changed tactics. The visits became rarer, but the support became a quiet, steady lifeline. Boxes would arrive, addressed to me, full of art books, new drawing pens, and gourmet dark chocolate. When I posted a new piece on my anonymous art account, a comment would appear almost instantly from a user with no profile picture named Legal Eagle PDX. "Strong composition. Check your perspective on the left. This is good. Push the contrast further. I see you." She was making sure I knew I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the sulky, moody, difficult girl they were painting me as. Someone else saw the truth. I learned to survive. I learned Clarissa's rules. If I asked about my mother, I got the silent treatment for a week. If I questioned why Dylan got a used car for his 16th birthday, and I was expected to take the bus. My school permission slips would be forgotten on the kitchen counter. If I brought up my college applications, Clarissa would suddenly need me to deep clean the guest bathroom. It was 1,000 tiny, bureaucratic punishments. When I was 17, I got a job. I worked 30 hours a week as a barista at a local coffee shop, saving every single dollar. I saved it in a bank account I opened myself, with my own name. I was saving for one thing, my escape. I was not going to be trapped in that house 1 second longer than I had to be. My high school graduation came. Clarissa, predictably, threw a massive party. It was another performance. She rented a tent for the backyard, hired caterers, and had balloon arches in my school colors. It was not a celebration of me. It was a celebration of her success as a mother in getting the difficult one across the finish line. Jenna came. She drove up from Portland, wearing a sharp, cream-colored suit and, as always, her gloves. She handed me a card and gave me a stiff, proud hug. Clarissa had put together a slideshow. "A look back at Maddie's journey," she announced. It was, of course, a montage of Clarissa's family. There I was, age 12, looking awkward at her and my father's wedding. There I was, age 15, in the background of Dylan's birthday party. There was photo after photo of her family, with me as a peripheral guest. Jenna prepared a slideshow too, I said loudly, emboldened by the small crowd. Jenna stepped forward, holding a USB drive. Just a few from her mother's side, she said politely. Oh, how lovely, Clarissa beamed. She took the drive. Let me just plug it in. She fumbled with the laptop for a minute. Oh, dear. Oh, this is terrible. She turned to the crowd, her face a mask of tragedy. Jenna, honey, I don't know what to tell you. The file seems to be corrupted. It's just not reading. I'm so sorry. She turned back to her own slideshow and pressed play. Well, at least we have these. Jenna's expression didn't change. She just nodded, her jaw tight, and went to get a glass of water. Later, I found Jenna. I had hidden behind the rented tent, near the coolers, finally letting the hot, angry tears come, my graduation day, and she had still found a way to erase my mother. Jenna came around the corner, her heels sinking slightly in the grass. She didn't say, "Don't cry." She didn't say, "It's okay." She just stood there for a moment, waiting for me to look up. When I did, she spoke, her voice low and precise. Your mother left you more than memories, Madeline, and more than money. She left you instructions. I wiped my nose, confused. Instructions? A map, for a day just like this. She knew this might happen. She knew them. She looked back toward the party, where Clarissa's laugh rang out. You're not ready for it yet, but you're close. When you are truly ready to fight, not just to be sad, we will follow it. I just stared at her, the key from the jewelry box suddenly feeling heavy in the pocket of my graduation dress. She reached out, and for the first time in the 9 years I had known her, she slowly, deliberately, peeled the black leather glove off her right hand. Her bare hand looked strange, vulnerable. She took my hand. Her skin was warm. It wasn't a hug. It was a contract, a promise. She knew you'd be a fighter, Madeline, Jenna said, her grip firm. It's time to start training. I got a scholarship to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. It wasn't a full ride, but combined with the money I had saved from the coffee shop, it was enough. It was enough to get out. I packed my life into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box full of art supplies. The day I left for the airport, Clarissa offered to drive me. It was another performance. The supportive mother, seeing her fledgling off. She talked the entire 45-minute drive about how expensive Chicago was and how most artists never made any real money. Well, it's good to get this out of your system, I suppose, she said, pulling up to the departures curb. When you're ready to come home and get a practical degree, like in marketing or something, your room will be waiting. It's not a phase, Clarissa, I said, pulling my suitcase out. We'll see, sweetheart. Just remember who your family is. I slammed the trunk. I won't forget, I said. I walked into the terminal without looking back, promising myself I would never, ever live in that house again. College was a revelation. It was messy, chaotic, and I was perpetually broke. I lived in a tiny, drafty apartment with 3 other art students. The kitchen was always full of dirty dishes. The hallway smelled like turpentine, and someone was always playing music I'd never heard of. It was heaven. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who saw me. My art wasn't a moody hobby or a phase. It was my language, my new friends, a loud, wonderful group of designers, painters, and sculptors, treated my work like it mattered. They argued with me about my font choices. They pushed me on my color theory. They stayed up until 3 a.m. with me helping me finish a project. I wasn't the sulky one. I was just Madeline. I thrived. My work got better. It got sharper, more confident. I was good. I was really good. Back in Seattle, Clarissa was spinning my absence into another chapter of her martyrdom. I heard through the grapevine of reluctant relatives, that I had chosen a selfish lifestyle. "It's so hard," she'd sigh to her church group. I was told, "Madeline just abandoned the family. She'd rather be off in a big city than be here, helping her father and me. We just pray she finds her way back to what's important." She had successfully reframed my scholarship-funded escape as an act of personal betrayal. Meanwhile, Dylan, who had graduated from a local community college with a C average, was handed a job. A friend of Clarissa's and my father's from the country club had a logistics company. Dylan was brought in as a junior account manager. Clarissa's Facebook was a shrine to his real career. "So proud of our Dylan," she posted under a photo of him in a badly fitting suit. "He's already climbing the corporate ladder. It's so wonderful when children value hard work and loyalty." The subtext was crystal clear. Dylan, with his handed-to-him job, was the hero. I, with my internships at prestigious Chicago design firms, was the flaky, ungrateful artist. 4 years passed in a blur of hard work and instant noodles. Graduation day was bright and hot. I sat in my cap and gown, surrounded by my friends, my portfolio under my chair. I scanned the crowd for my father. He wasn't there. Clarissa had called a week earlier to say they just couldn't make it. Something about a last-minute conflict with Dylan's work schedule. I had pretended it didn't hurt. As the dean was calling my name, a figure in the back of the auditorium stood out. It was Jenna. She was wearing a sharp dark blue suit, sunglasses on, and she was clapping, her gloved hands making a soft, distinct thud, thud, thud. I found her afterward, by the fountains. She wasn't carrying a huge, ostentatious balloon bouquet. She just had a small, simple bunch of deep purple irises, my mother's favorite, and a crisp, white envelope. "You didn't tell me you were coming," I said, my throat tight. "I wouldn't miss this," she said. She handed me the flowers. "Your mother would have been insufferably proud." "Thanks for being here, Jenna. It means—" "I know what it means," she said. She handed me the envelope. "This is for you, too, a graduation present, from her." I opened it. Inside wasn't a greeting card. It was a formal-looking document, a certificate of deposit. It was from a small, independent bank in Portland. It was a savings fund, opened in my name the day I was born. The amount listed made my head swim. It wasn't millions, but it was more money than I had ever seen. It was enough to pay off the small student loan I'd taken, with a lot left over. I don't understand," I stammered. "I thought Dad always said she didn't leave anything, that things were tight." Jenna watched me, her expression unreadable. "That," she said, gesturing to the paper, "is a small education fund your mother set up separately, with me as the signatory. She wanted you to have it when you graduated. It was her get-started gift." She took a breath, and her lawyer mode seemed to click on. "Madeline, this is not the main part." "Main part? What main part?" "Your mother was a brilliant artist, but she was also the daughter of a very practical, very wealthy man. Your grandfather, when he passed, he left everything to her. Your mother, in turn, left everything to you." I just stared at her. The noise of the graduation crowd faded. "She left it to you in an irrevocable trust," Jenna continued, her voice low and precise. "One I helped her draft. It was designed to be ironclad. The terms were explicit. The assets were to be managed for your benefit, kept entirely separate from any new spouse your father might marry, and you were to be informed of its full existence and contents no later than your 25th birthday." I did the math. I was 22. Why am I just hearing this now? Why didn't my father— Jenna's face hardened. "Because your father and Clarissa have been fighting me on it since 6 months after your mother died. They petitioned the court to have Clarissa named co-trustee, arguing that I was an unstable influence and lived out of state." "They took you to court?" "Oh, yes. When you were 11, you were a minor, so you were never notified. They claimed the trust was needlessly complex and that they should have direct access to the funds to provide for your care. The judge, thankfully, saw through it. He read your mother's will, which specifically named Clarissa as a person who should never have control, and he denied their petition. Utterly, I've remained the sole co-trustee, along with your father, who, as you can imagine, has largely deferred to his wife's opinions on management. I felt dizzy. I had to sit down on the edge of the fountain. So, for all those years, when I was told there was no money, when I was left home from ski trips because they couldn't afford a ticket, when Dylan got a car and I got the bus, the trust, Jenna said, has been paying for the mortgage on that house, for your father's share of the utilities, for your upkeep, all of it, all while you were being told you were a financial burden. They just neglected to tell you that you were the one paying for it. I was 22, and my entire life had just been detonated. Every memory, every slight, every holiday I'd spent alone, it all replayed in my mind, but now with a new, sickening financial subtext. My selfish lifestyle in Chicago was the one thing I had done on my own, the one thing I had earned, and I was damned if I was going to let them take that. I got a job, a really good one. A headhunter found me on LinkedIn, impressed with my senior portfolio. It was a UI/UX designer position at a fast-growing, highly respected creative lab in Seattle called Northwind. The offer was incredible. The projects were cutting edge. It was everything I had worked for. It was also in Seattle. I stared at the offer letter for a full day. I had sworn I would never go back. But this wasn't going back to them. This was going back as myself, as an independent, successful adult, with my own money and my own career. This was going back in armor. I took the job. When I told Clarissa I was moving back, she immediately launched into action. This was a victory she could claim. The prodigal daughter, having failed at her artsy experiment, was returning to the fold. She insisted on throwing me a welcome home party. It was, of course, a thinly veiled performance for her friends and the church group. The house was immaculate. She'd ordered catering. "We are just so thrilled," she announced, raising a glass of champagne, the living room packed with her crowd. It just goes to show, in the end, family always returns to where they belong. We're so proud of Madeline for finding her way back to us. I stood there, smiling, a glass of club soda in my hand. I felt like an anthropologist observing a bizarre, hostile ritual. Later, as guests were milling, Clarissa cornered me by the fireplace. Her smile was bright. Her eyes were sharp. "So," she said, in a low conspiratorial whisper, "this new job, it sounds very technical. They must be paying you well, right? A starting salary at a place like that? What, 60,000? 70? "I'm doing okay, Clarissa," I said, non-committal. "Well, that's wonderful, sweetheart. Just wonderful." She put her hand on my arm, her rings cold. "You know, your father and I have been thinking, this house, the upkeep is just enormous. The roof needs work, and the deck needs to be resealed. Now that you're back, and making a real salary, we were hoping you'd be willing to contribute." I looked at her, her perfectly coiffed, expectant face. "Contribute?" I asked. "Well, of course, honey. We all chip in here. Dylan has been helping out ever since he started his career. It's only fair. Family helps family, right?" I felt a sudden, cold clarity. It was the same clarity I'd felt on the edge of the fountain in Chicago. The old me, the teenage me, would have stammered, or cried, or just frozen. But I wasn't her anymore. "Actually, Clarissa," I said, my voice quiet but perfectly steady, "my finances are my own. I won't be contributing to the house." Her smile didn't drop. It froze. It was a rictus. A mask of social grace stretched too tight. The warmth in her eyes vanished instantly, replaced by that cold reptilian assessment I knew so well. "I see," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. She took her hand off my arm. "That Portland lawyer, she's really gotten her claws into you, hasn't she? All those years, filling your head with poison. I'm just managing my own money, Clarissa, the way Mom intended." She didn't have a reply for that. She just stared at me for a second. her mind clearly racing, recalculating. Then she turned on her heel and walked away, her back rigid, to go refresh an older couple's drinks, her laugh echoing brightly just a moment later, as if nothing had happened. The battle line had been drawn, and she knew I had just seen it. I left the party early. As I sat in my new, empty apartment, the one I'd paid the deposit for myself, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jenna. It was just a photograph, a picture of a gray metal, fireproof lockbox. On the front, there was a simple, handwritten label, in a strong feminine script I recognized from the backs of old photos. It was my mother's handwriting. The label said, "For Madeline, for when she's ready." Underneath the photo, Jenna's text message read, "This is the part they really don't want you to see." The following Saturday, I took the first train to Portland. I didn't tell my father or Clarissa where I was going. I was 28 years old. I didn't have to. Jenna's law firm was not like the chaotic, open-plan creative agency I worked at. It was on the 40th floor of a glass and steel tower that pierced the Portland sky. The reception area was a silent, cavernous space of polished marble, dark wood, and priceless modern art. It smelled of old money and floor wax. The only sound was the faint, electronic shush of the ventilation. A receptionist who looked like a model directed me to a corner conference room. Jenna was already there, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city. She was wearing a charcoal gray suit that was so perfectly tailored it looked less like clothing and more like architecture. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon, and she was wearing her gloves, black, kid leather. Today, they looked less like armor and more like a uniform. She radiated absolute, terrifying control. "Madeline," she said, turning. She didn't smile, but her eyes were kind. "Thank you for coming. Coffee?" "I'm fine," I said, my hands clammy. On the center of the massive, gleaming mahogany table sat the gray, fireproof lockbox from the photograph. It looked small and unassuming in the vast, intimidating room. Jenna sat down, placing her gloved hands on the table. She gestured to the box. "Your mother, Anna, gave this to me 3 weeks before she died. She was in the hospital. She was lucid, but she was realistic. She knew she was in a fight she was probably going to lose." Jenna produced a small key, different from the one I had, and inserted it into the lock. She opened the lid. "She made me her executor," Jenna continued, her voice steady, as if she were outlining a case. "And she gave me 2 primary directives. The first was to manage her estate and the trust for your benefit. The second was to give you this box, and everything it contained, when, and only when, you came to me yourself and asked for the truth." She was adamant. She said, "Don't poison her against her father, Jenna. But the moment she suspects the poison is already there, you show her the antidote." I looked at her. "At the graduation, when you showed me the bank account, why not then?" "You were angry about the party, about the ski trips," Jenna said. "You weren't asking about the lies. You were asking about the money. Your mother's instructions were clear. You had to ask for the truth. The moment you confronted Clarissa about the letters, the ones Clarissa told you didn't exist, you were finally asking the right question." She turned the box and pushed it toward me. It was full, not with jewelry or sentimental objects. It was full of paper, files, binders. I reached in and pulled out the first folder. It was thick, on the tab, in Jenna's neat, precise print. It said, "Correspondence, R, Price, East Q." I opened it. It was a collection of letters, not from my father, but to him, from his own lawyers, spanning years. I flipped through them, my heart pounding, and then I saw it. A formal, watermarked legal document, a court petition. "What is this?" I whispered. "That," Jenna said, "is the petition your father and Clarissa filed when you were 11 years old. They wanted the court to remove me as co-trustee and name Clarissa in my place." I read the scanned pages. It was all there, in black and white. They argued that Jenna was geographically undesirable, and my personal favorite, too emotionally connected to the deceased to make rational financial decisions. They claimed she was an adversarial presence who was preventing the family from healing and moving forward. They wanted full control. The judge dismissed it with prejudice, Jenna said, her voice flat. He found their petition to be frivolous and an apparent attempt to circumvent the deceased's explicit written wishes. Your mother, as I told you, was very, very clear in her will. Clarissa was never to have signatory power over your assets, ever. So, while I was being told I was selfish for asking about my mother, Clarissa was in court, actively trying to seize control of my inheritance, using the argument that my godmother loved my mother too much to be objective. I put the file down, my hands shaking. I reached back into the box. Underneath the legal files, there was a stack of letters, tied with a simple, faded blue ribbon. They were on my mother's stationery, the kind with the embossed dragonfly. The top one was addressed, in her strong, looping script, to my Madeline, on her 21st birthday. I opened it. My dearest girl. If you are reading this, it means I'm not there to tell you in person, and for that, I am more sorry than you will ever know. But you are 21. You are a woman. I've been sitting here in this stupid hospital bed, thinking about all the things I want to tell you. I want to tell you that your favorite food at age 3 was blackberries, and you refused to eat anything else for a solid month. I want to tell you that the first time I heard your heartbeat, it sounded like a drum solo, and I just knew, you were going to be a rebel. Your favorite song is Dreams by the Cranberries, though you don't know the words yet. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you are too sensitive. Your sensitivity is your superpower. It's what makes you an artist. It's what makes you, you. I stopped reading. My vision blurred. A single, hot tear dripped onto the page. She said there were no letters, I whispered. My voice choked. She told me Mom didn't leave anything. She told me she was too sick, too unstable at the end. She was weak, Jenna said, her voice hard as steel. But her mind was a fortress. She wrote one for every major birthday, 10, 16, 21, 30, and a dozen others. They are all in there. I have been the custodian of these, and that petition. That is why. Can you imagine what would have happened to these letters if Clarissa had been named trustee? They wouldn't just be hidden, they would be ash, like my hospital bracelet. Jenna let me sit with it for a long minute. She let the silence and the weight of it fill the room. I kept my promise to Anna, Jenna finally said, leaning forward. I didn't interfere. I let you grow up. I let you find your own footing. But I admit, I've been concerned. Watching her rewrite your history. Watching her paint you as the villain in a story you didn't even know was being written. I believe that waiting any longer is no longer protecting you. It's empowering her narrative. She pulled another file from the box. Timeline. It was all laid out. 6 months after my mother's death. Clarissa and my father are officially dating, though Jenna's notes indicated they were seen together much earlier. 9 months. Clarissa moves into the rental house. 1 year. My father and Clarissa are engaged. 1 year and 1 month. My father signs a prenuptial agreement. This was my one victory. In those early days, Jenna said, pointing to a clause. I had to threaten to sue him for breach of fiduciary duty to get him to sign it. But he did. The prenup explicitly states that your mother's trust, your assets, are yours alone. They are not, and can never become, marital property. He couldn't touch the principal. He couldn't give it to Clarissa. So, she couldn't get the money, I said, connecting the dots. She couldn't get the money, Jenna corrected. But she got the house. She got the lifestyle. She got control of your father, and she got control of the narrative. A new sickening realization dawned on me. All those years, she talked about saving the family, about how they were struggling, how she was holding it all together on her own. A complete fabrication, Jenna said. I've been managing the trust's investments for 20 years. Madeline, they have grown substantially. The trust has been paying the mortgage on that house, the property taxes, and a significant stipend for your care and housing, as per the trust terms. Your father's salary paid for their ski trips and Dylan's cars. But your mother's money, your money, paid for the stability, the foundation, Clarissa's entire life as a suburban matriarch, her social standing, her ability to host parties and lead church committees, was built on a foundation your mother paid for, and she has spent 2 decades erasing the woman who wrote the checks. I felt cold. I felt hollowed out. The trust fully matures, Jenna said, her voice pulling me back. When you turn 30, that is in 2 years. What does that mean? Matures? It means that at 30, the power shifts, the co-trustees, your father and I, are dissolved. You become the sole beneficiary and the sole trustee. You get full, unrestricted access. You will have the right to a complete audit of every transaction, every management fee, every withdrawal. For the last 28 years, you will have the right to question every single expense, and if we can prove gross mismanagement or breach of fiduciary duty, like, for instance, using funds meant for your upbringing to pay for a stepson's college tuition, you will have the right to claw it back. You can even force the sale of the house to make the trust whole. She looked at me, her eyes laser-focused. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Madeline? I nodded, my mouth dry. It's a bomb. It's a bomb, she agreed. And when you pull this thread, the entire sweater unravels. They will not go quietly. Clarissa will not let go of the narrative she has spent your entire life perfecting. They will play dirty. They will lie. They will go to your friends, to your job. They will paint you as a greedy, ungrateful, unstable monster who is trying to steal her own father's home. They have had 20 years to build their script. You are just now getting yours. I looked down at the letter in my lap, at my mother's handwriting. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you are too sensitive. Your sensitivity is your superpower. I was so tired. I was so tired of being the sulky one. I was tired of being the family's designated problem. I was tired of being erased from my own goddamn life. She's not the only one with a script, I said, my voice quiet, but it didn't shake. You and Mom wrote one, too. I looked up at Jenna. I'd rather live in the middle of a war than spend one more day living in an album that Clarissa directed. Show me everything. For the first time that day, Jenna smiled. It was a thin, dangerous, magnificent smile. She reached up, and slowly, deliberately, she unbuttoned the cuffs of her black leather gloves. She pulled the right one off, finger by finger, then the left. She folded them neatly and placed them in her suit jacket pocket. She reached for a thick 3-ring binder that was sitting on the credenza behind her. It was heavy. She placed it on the table in front of me with a solid, definitive thud. The label on the spine was printed in her neat, all-caps handwriting. It said, Documentation, M. Price. Use when they start to attack your memory and your sanity. I opened it. It was a timeline. It was emails. It was school records. It was copies of birthday party invitations I'd never received. It was a receipt for the specific snowboard Dylan got for Christmas the year I was told they couldn't afford to fly me to Vail. It was 20 years of receipts. I left the office an hour later, the fireproof box in a new tote bag, and the thick binder clutched in my hand. I felt heavy. I felt armed. My next step wouldn't just be a step. It would be a declaration of war, and it would make me either the villain or the survivor. It all just depended on who got to tell the story louder. That night, back in my Seattle apartment, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my sofa, the binder open, the letters spread out on my coffee table. I felt my mother's presence for the first time in years, not as a sad ghost, but as a strategist. I opened Facebook, a habit I hated, and there it was, a new post from Clarissa. From an hour ago, it was a soft-focus picture of her and my father, smiling at a church barbecue. The caption read, So blessed to spend a beautiful Sunday with my wonderful husband and our church family. Life is all about forgiveness and remembering what's truly important, faith, and the people who stand by you, no matter what. Feeling so grateful for our unity. I looked at the post, I looked at the binder, I looked at the letter from my mother. The collision was already here. She just didn't know I was finally ready to hit back. And so, we returned to the night of the slap. It was my father's retirement party, a date Clarissa had circled on her calendar for months. It was also, conveniently, a week before his 60th birthday, so she had combined them into one grand, catered affair. The house was packed. Colleagues from his engineering firm, neighbors from their manicured street, and the entire senior leadership from her church. The air was thick with the scent of bacon-wrapped scallops and expensive perfume. Clarissa was the director, and the house was her stage. She had spent the last 2 decades curating this set. The living room wall, the one she called the family wall, was a testament to her narrative. It was a dense, professionally framed gallery of her success. Clarissa and my father in Italy. Clarissa and my father at a black tie gala. Dylan in his high school football uniform. Dylan in his college cap and gown. Dylan shaking hands with his boss. Dylan. I was there, of course, tucked in a small 5x7 frame near the bottom. There was a photo of me from high school, age 16, caught in a moment of pure adolescent awkwardness. I was wearing braces. My hair was frizzy, and I was clearly mid-sentence, my expression pained. Clarissa loved this photo. "Oh, there's our moody Maddie," she'd laugh whenever someone noticed it. She's always been our little deep thinker. It was the only photo of me on the entire wall, an official, state-sanctioned joke. I had been in the house for an hour, nursing a club soda, my nerves vibrating. The binder and the box of letters were in the trunk of my car. I hadn't decided what to do yet. I just knew I couldn't stand there, among the cheese boards and the twinkling Christmas lights, and participate in the lie any longer. The trigger wasn't me. It was an outsider, a vice president from my father's company, a kind-eyed man named Mr. Henderson, who I hadn't seen in years. He cornered me by the fireplace. "Madeline, my goodness," he said, smiling warmly. "Look at you. You are the spitting image of your mother, Anna, right? I only met her a few times, ages ago. She was a lovely woman, an artist, wasn't she?" The conversational hum around us seemed to dim. I felt a prickle on my neck. I knew Clarissa's ears were perked, like a predator sensing a wounded animal. "Yes," I said, my voice tight. She would be so proud of you," he said, oblivious. "A career in design. That's wonderful. You really got her creative spark." Before I could answer, Clarissa was there. She materialized at his elbow, a fresh glass of wine in her hand for him, her smile a brilliant, blinding white. "Jim, you sweet man. Here, you looked empty." She handed him the glass, her body perfectly, subtly, blocking him from me. "Now, you leave Madeline alone. She's busy mingling. You and I need to talk about that trip to Hawaii you just took. I am dying to see pictures." She began to steer him away, but he wasn't quite done. "She's just such a lovely girl. Clarissa, a real credit to you and Robert, and so much like Anna." Clarissa's smile tightened by a millimeter. She stopped, turning back to him, her voice dropping into that familiar, tragic, confidential purr, the one she used for maximum effect. "Oh, Jim," she sighed, putting a sympathetic hand on his arm. "You're too kind. It's been a long road." She glanced at me, a look of profound, maternal sadness that was pure performance. "Madeline doesn't remember her mother much. Of course, it's a blessing, really. Anna was, well, she was a very beautiful, very troubled woman, deeply unstable. She made a choice to leave her family. It was a tragedy, for all of us, especially for Robert." She delivered the entire monologue, the official, sanctioned narrative of my life, in under 30 seconds, troubled, unstable, chose to leave, the lie she had built our family on. The blood drained from my face, my stomach twisted, a cold, hard knot of rage. All I could see were the letters in my car, the letters from a woman who loved me, who wrote to her 21-year-old daughter about blackberries and the cranberries. "That's not true," I said. The music was soft, but my voice cut straight through it. Mr. Henderson looked confused. I beg your pardon? Clarissa's head snapped toward me. Her eyes were suddenly cold. The performance over. Madeline, not now. Her letters say otherwise, I said, my voice louder, clearer. Silence. The real, pressurized silence that part one began with. The kind that sucks all the air out of a room. Everyone, stopped talking. I could hear the clink of an ice cube in a glass across the room. Clarissa took a step toward me. You will not do this, she hissed, her voice a low, venomous command. You will not drag your private, morbid fantasies into the middle of your father's party. You have been obsessed with this for years. It is unhealthy, and it stops now. They're not fantasies, I said. I could feel my hands starting to shake. I could feel the hot, angry tears welling up, and I blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. They're her words. I've read them. I didn't plan it. It just came out. The one simple, unanswerable question. Why did you hide them? What did you say? She whispered, her face contorting. The letters, I said, and now I couldn't stop. The letters my mother wrote to me. The ones for my birthdays. The ones she left with Jenna. The ones you told me my entire life did not exist. Why did you hide them from me? The mask didn't just crack. It shattered. The carefully constructed, benevolent, Christian matriarch vanished. In her place was something raw, white-hot, and completely out of control. She didn't think. She didn't calculate. She reacted. She lunged. The thwack of her hand across my face was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was a full-force, open-palm strike, her rings scraping my skin. My head snapped to the side. The sting was immediate, a sharp, metallic burst of pain. My ear rang, my wine glass, the one I had been gripping, slipped and shattered on the hardwood floor, splashing Chardonnay across the oriental rug. Someone gasped, a woman I didn't know, standing by the cheese board, dropped her plate. It clattered to the tile, and the sound of it breaking seemed to echo the break in the room. No one moved. No one breathed. Every guest was a statue, their eyes wide, staring. Clarissa stood in front of me, her chest heaving, her hand still half raised. Her face was a terrifying mask of pure, unfiltered rage. My father, Robert, stood frozen by the doorway to the dining room. His mouth was open. He looked paralyzed. He looked at me, at the broken glass, at Clarissa's heaving chest. Now, let's just, everyone take a breath, he stammered, holding his hands up placatingly, as if calming a spooked horse. This is a private family matter. If everyone could just give us a little privacy. But no one moved. No one was going to leave. This was the best show they'd seen all year. And from behind a massive floral arrangement, I saw the blue light of a phone, held low, its camera lens pointed right at us. Mom? What the hell? Dylan, my stepbrother, came barreling through the crowd. He didn't look at Clarissa. He looked at me. His face was beet red. He grabbed my arm, hard. What did you do? He hissed, his grip tightening, pulling me toward the coat closet. What did you say to her? You are destroying Dad's retirement. This is his night. She hit me, Dylan, I said, my voice numb, my cheek on fire. I don't care what she did, he whisper-shouted, his face inches from mine. You started this. You always start this. You are going to apologize to her, right now, for ruining this entire night, or I swear to God I will throw you out the front door myself. She's sick, Clarissa suddenly shrieked. Finding her voice, the rage was gone, instantly replaced by a theatrical, sobbing victimhood. This was her damage control. She was speaking to the room now. She's not well. She's been manipulated by that woman in Portland. That Jenna. She's poisoning her. My God, my daughter is sick. She pointed a shaking finger at me. Get her out of my house. I yanked my arm out of Dylan's grasp. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at my father, who was still standing there, frozen, his face a mask of miserable inaction. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That was the answer. That was the only answer I ever needed. I turned my back on them, on Dylan's rage, on Clarissa's performance, on my father's cowardice. I walked through the silent, parted sea of guests. I grabbed my coat and my bag from the entryway. "You are sick, Madeline," Clarissa screamed after me, her voice cracking with a performance of hysteria. "You are twisted by that evil, jealous woman. You are not welcome here. You are not part of this family." I walked out the front door and slammed it behind me. The cold, damp December air hit my burning cheek. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking so violently I could barely get the door open. I collapsed into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and just breathed. My heart was a hummingbird in my chest. I sat there in the darkness of my car, parked down the street. After a long minute, I reached into my coat pocket. My phone was still there. I had started the audio recording the second Clarissa had hissed. "Not now." I pressed play. I heard my own voice, steady. "Why did you hide them?" I heard Clarissa's whisper. "What did you say?" I heard my question, clear as a bell. "The ones you told me my entire life did not exist." And then I heard it. Thwack, the gasp, the sound of the dropped plate. It was real. It had all happened. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't obsessed. I wasn't unhealthy. I had the proof. A raw, undeniable audio file of the exact second the truth was met with violence. My phone buzzed. A text. It was from a number I didn't recognize. A group chat I'd been added to. It was the neighbor's kid, the high schooler from 2 doors down. He had sent a video to a few friends. It was the clip, filmed from behind the flowers. It was silent, grainy, and zoomed in. It showed me standing, gesticulating. It showed Clarissa, her face contorted. It showed her lunge and strike me, but from the angle, and without sound, it just looked like a messy, chaotic argument. The kid had captioned it, "Price family meltdown. Stepdaughter loses it at the party." My stomach turned to ice. He'd gotten it wrong. He'd framed me as the one who lost it. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jenna. "I've seen it," the text read. "Barbara from the church choir is already circulating it. I'm on my way." A second text came through. "They just crossed the exact line your mother predicted in her will. We're done waiting." I was still processing that when I opened Facebook. I didn't even have to look for it. Clarissa's post was already at the top of my feed. It had been posted 5 minutes ago. From upstairs in her house, while the party guests were still whispering and collecting their coats. It was a stock photo of a single candle burning in the dark. The caption was long and rambling. "It is with the heaviest heart that I ask for your prayers tonight. We had a wonderful celebration for Robert, but it was overshadowed by a painful family incident. We have a beloved family member who is struggling deeply with anger, mental health issues, and toxic outside influences. We are so worried. Please pray for her. Pray for her to find peace, and pray for our family's healing in the face of this deeply frightening and aggressive behavior." I scrolled down. The comments were already flooding in, a tidal wave of support. "Oh, Clarissa, I am praying for you. You are a saint. We saw what happened. She needs help. You are so strong. I am heartbroken for your family. Stay strong, Mama Bear." I sat in my car, my cheek throbbing, the audio file of her assault playing on my phone, and I watched, in real time, as my stepmother, the victim, was born. She had already won. She had taken the story, and she was running with it, faster than I could even understand what had just happened. The weekend was a blur of adrenaline, validation, and a profound, hollow sickness. I had the truth. I had the letters. I had the audio file of the slap. I had spent 48 hours pacing my apartment, reading my mother's words until my eyes burned, and listening to Jenna's calm, strategic voice on the phone. Then, Monday morning came. I walked into the bright, Open plan office of Northwind Creative Labs. My armor on. I was Madeline Price, UX team lead. I was competent. I was professional. I was sane. I was just going to file the weekend under personal, put my headphones on, and dive into wireframes for a new client build. I could separate. I had to. I sat down. My computer chimed to life, and I opened my inbox. It was right at the top, a red exclamation point next to it. Subject: Urgent. A formal concern regarding Madeline Price. From Sarah Jenkins, Head of Human Resources. CC: Clarissa Price. Greg Johnson, my boss. My blood did not just run cold, it evaporated. She had CC'd. Clarissa? How did she even have their email addresses? I clicked it open, my hand shaking so hard I almost missed the mouse. It wasn't an email from HR, it was a forward. The original message, sent at 6:03 a.m. that morning, was from Clarissa. My stomach hollowed out. Dear Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Johnson, I am writing to you today with the heaviest heart a mother can have. My name is Clarissa Price, and I am Madeline Price's stepmother. I am writing to you out of a profound and urgent concern for her well-being, and frankly, for the safety of your workplace. This past Saturday, at a private family celebration for her father, Madeline suffered a complete and violent mental breakdown. She became verbally abusive, and when we tried to calm her, she physically attacked me, screaming and lashing out. My son had to physically restrain her, and she fled the house. I have always known she has struggled with instability, which she gets from her biological mother's side, but this was new. This was violent. We are terrified for her. I feel it is my moral duty to inform you. I know she works with your clients, and I am so deeply afraid that she might be a danger to herself or others in a professional setting. We are currently exploring legal options and psychological intervention. Please, I am begging you to keep an eye on her. We are just so scared. It was a masterpiece, a symphony of feigned concern, slander, and strategic, professional-sounding keywords. Violent, mental breakdown, danger to others, instability. She was trying to get me fired, or, at the very least, put on medical leave. She was attacking my livelihood. But she wasn't done. There were attachments. Attachment 1, a screenshot of a text message conversation. It was just one text from me, isolated, with no context. From 3 months ago, we had been arguing about her refusal to take my father to a specialist for his heart. My text, in a bright blue bubble, read, I am sick of your lies. You are deliberately hurting this family, and I am not going to stand by and watch it anymore. Out of context, it looked unhinged. Attachment 2, a photograph, a close-up of a wrist and forearm, resting on a quartz countertop, Clarissa's wrist. There was a dark, purplish, angry-looking bruise just below her watch. I stared at it, confused. I never touched her. Wait, Dylan. When Dylan grabbed me, he pulled me toward the closet. Clarissa had been there, screaming. Get her out! Had she grabbed me, too? I remembered yanking my arm away from him, a violent, twisting motion to break his grip. My watch. Did my watch hit her as I pulled free from her son? She wasn't trying to calm me down. She was part of the assault, and she was using the bruise she sustained while they manhandled me as proof that I had attacked her. My inbox pinged again, a new email. This one just from Sarah Jenkins, the HR manager. Madeline, in light of the forwarded communication, which alleges a domestic violence incident, we need to meet today at 10 a.m. in Conference Room B. As you are in a client-facing leadership role, we have a duty of care to review this matter immediately. Please be prompt. The corporate jargon was a death sentence. Duty of care, client-facing leadership role. They were code. I was a liability. I grabbed my phone, walked into the smallest, soundproof phone booth room on the floor, and shut the door. My hands were shaking so badly I had to dial twice. Jenna. My voice was a choked whisper. Madeline, what is it? What's wrong? Her godmother voice was on. She emailed my work. She emailed HR and my boss. She sent pictures. A picture of a bruise on her wrist. She said I was violent and unstable. She said I was a danger to the workplace. The tears I had held back all weekend finally came, hot and silent. They're meeting with me, Jenna, in 20 minutes. They're going to fire me. The line was silent for 3 full seconds. When she spoke again, the godmother was gone. The lawyer was here. Forward me the email chain, now. Her voice was ice. What is the full name of the HR manager? What is your boss's name? What is the name of the company's CEO? I want all of them. I sniffled, typing through my tears, sending her the information. Jenna, what do I do? You are going to take a deep breath, she commanded. I am reading it. My God. This is brazen. This is libel per se. And tortious interference with a business contract. She just burned her entire life to the ground. She just doesn't know it yet. Jenna, the meeting. You will accept the meeting, Jenna said, her voice like a striking match. You will reply right now to Sarah Jenkins and your boss. Greg, you will CC me. You will write, Understood. As this email contains false and defamatory allegations concerning a private, ongoing probate matter, my counsel will be joining me via video link. Send it. That's all. I will handle the rest. I'm sending you a link for my video call. Add it to the email. I did exactly as she said. I typed the words, my hands shaking. I added Jenna's professional WebEx link. I hit send. A reply came back from Sarah Jenkins almost instantly. That is, acceptable. We will have the link ready in conference room B. Her tone had already changed. At 10 a.m., I walked into the gray glass-walled conference room. Sarah Jenkins, the head of HR, was there. She looked severe. My boss, Greg Johnson, was there, looking profoundly uncomfortable and avoiding my eyes. Madeline, Sarah began. Thank you for joining us. Greg is here as your manager. We have the video link ready for your counsel. I plugged in the monitor. A second later, Jenna's face filled the 60-inch screen. She was in her office, a wall of leather-bound law books behind her. She was wearing her black suit and a silk shell. No gloves. She looked formidable, calm, and utterly lethal. Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Johnson, Jenna said, her voice as crisp and clear as the HD video. I am Jenna Harrison, of Harrison, Finch, and Adler. I am counsel for Ms. Madeline Price. I have reviewed the email sent by Ms. Clarissa Price this morning, and I am, frankly, stunned that a company of Northwind's caliber would even dignify it with a meeting. Sarah stiffened. Ms. Harrison, we have a zero-tolerance policy for violence. Ms. Price's stepmother has alleged a serious assault. We have a duty of care to our employees and our clients. Your duty of care, Jenna cut in, her voice slicing through the corporate platitudes, is to your employee, not to her estranged, demonstrably malicious relative. You are now in receipt of a communication that is libelous per se. By acting on it, by scheduling this very meeting, and by CCing the accuser, you are validating that libel and are actively participating in the creation of a hostile work environment for my client. Greg Johnson shifted in his seat. Now, wait a minute. No one is creating a... Jenna's eyes snapped to him. You are, right now. Let me be exceptionally clear. The incident in question occurred at a private residence. It is a private family dispute over a probate matter that is about to be filed with the King County Superior Court. My client, Ms. Price, was the one who was physically assaulted by Clarissa Price. We have audio evidence of this assault, time-stamped, as well as multiple witnesses. Jenna leaned forward, as if she could project through the screen. The evidence Ms. Clarissa Price sent you is fraudulent. It is an out-of-context text message and a photograph of a bruise she herself sustained while she and her son were physically restraining my client. This entire communication is a bad faith, extrajudicial attempt to interfere with my client's employment. This is, by its legal definition, tortious interference with a business contract, a very serious and very actionable offense. The legal terms landed like grenades: libel, defamation, hostile work environment, tortious interference. Sarah Jenkins's face had gone pale. These were the words that gave HR managers nightmares. Our position, Jenna continued, her voice relentless, is that this email chain constitutes workplace harassment. We expect it to be expunged from any file, digital or physical, related to Ms. Price's employment. We expect a formal written confirmation of this by end of day. We also expect Clarissa Price's email address and any known aliases to be blocked from all Northwind Company servers. If one more communication from her reaches my client's inbox, or any inbox at your company, we will be forced to name Northwind as a co-defendant in our civil suit. Are we understood? The silence in the room was absolute. I could hear the fan in the projector. Sarah Jenkins cleared her throat. Her entire demeanor changed. The stern headmistress was gone, replaced by a nervous administrator. Yes, Ms. Harrison, I believe we are. Obviously, we were just following procedure. Ms. Price, Madeline, we apologize. This communication was clearly excessive. We will, of course, disregard it entirely. This will have no bearing on your employment or your standing here. We trust this is the end of the matter. We expect that in writing by 5 p.m., Jenna said. Thank you for your time. The screen went blank. I sat there, my hands in my lap. Greg Johnson stared at the black screen, then at me. He looked at me with a new, profound respect, mixed with a healthy dose of fear. Right, he said, standing up and adjusting his tie. Well, glad that's sorted. Let's talk about the design sprint for the new client build, shall we? The attack on my job had failed, so Clarissa pivoted. She doubled down on the social and familial front. My phone, which had been quiet, began to light up. Texts from cousins, from my aunt, my father's sister. Maddie, what on earth happened? Clarissa is sending some very scary things to the family text chain. Honey, are you okay? Clarissa is telling everyone you attacked her. My aunt forwarded me a voice note. It was from the extended Price family group chat, the one I'd been removed from years ago. I pressed play. It was Clarissa's voice, but not the one I knew. It was a broken, tearful, shaky whisper. I don't know what to do, she sobbed. I'm afraid to be in my own home. I'm afraid of her. She just snapped. I've always known she had that darkness in her, from her mother's side. But this, I'm looking into a restraining order. For me and for Robert, please, just pray for us. A restraining order? She wasn't just slandering me. She was building a case. She was laying the groundwork to have me legally declared unstable. Then, a text from Dylan appeared in the same forwarded chain. I was there. I saw the whole thing. Maddie just lunged at Mom. She went completely crazy. I had to pull her off. It was terrifying. Mom didn't do anything. He was her witness. He was actively, consciously corroborating her lie. He was omitting the slap. I called Jenna again, my voice frantic. She's telling everyone I'm crazy. She's talking about a restraining order. Dylan is backing her up. Let her, Jenna said. She sounded calm, almost pleased. She is creating a permanent digital record of her libel. She is handing us our case. Now, it's our turn to stake the truth, quietly. What do we do? Post the audio file? Good God. No, Jenna said. We don't fight her on Facebook. We don't fight her in a group chat. We establish a counter-narrative with the people who actually matter, the pillars, the people whose opinions Clarissa can't afford to lose, and the people who can help us. Over the next hour, Jenna prepared 3 identical, encrypted digital packets. Packet 1, to my Aunt Carol, my father's sister, who had always been kind to me and who Clarissa secretly despised. Packet 2, to my own therapist, who I'd been seeing for a year. The email was titled, For Your Professional Records, in case my client's mental health is ever legally or medically questioned. Packet 3. To the original probate lawyer who had handled my grandfather's estate, a man who knew my mother's family history. Inside each packet was a simple, one-page cover letter from Jenna. For your information and private records only, we are disseminating this to preempt a false narrative. Attached was a copy of the original petition Clarissa and Robert had filed to have Jenna removed as trustee when I was 11. Attached was a full, certified transcript of the audio recording from Saturday, with a descriptive note. Sound of a significant open palm physical strike, followed by a gasp and breaking glass. And finally, a copy of the email Clarissa had sent to my employer that morning. We are not trying to win a popularity contest, Jenna said. We are establishing a legal and familial record of the truth. This stops her from controlling the narrative in the places that actually count. Just as I hung up, my desk phone rang. It was Greg, my boss. Hey, Madeline, he said, his voice sounding incredibly awkward. Can you swing by my office? My heart was back in my throat. I walked over, my legs unsteady. He didn't have me sit down. He just stood by his desk, looking at his computer. Look, Madeline, he said, not meeting my eyes. This is weird, and I'm not getting involved. But your stepmother just called my direct office line, bypassed the front desk. She left a voicemail. What? I felt sick. He rubbed his face, then clicked his mouse. He hit play. Clarissa's voice, thick with fake tears, filled his office. Mr. Johnson, hello? This is Clarissa Price. I am so worried about Madeline. I know she must have spoken to HR, but I am begging you, as a mother, she is not well. She is a danger to herself. I am so afraid she's going to hurt someone. Please, just watch her. I stood there, mortified, my face burning. He was listening to it. He stopped the recording. He looked at me, really looked at me, for a long second. Then he sighed, dragged the audio file on his screen, and dropped it into his trash bin. Look, Madeline, he said, finally meeting my eyes. I don't know what's going on in your family, and honestly, it's none of my business. What I do know is that you are one of the best designers I have ever worked with. You deliver on time, your work is brilliant, and your team respects you, whatever. He gestured to the phone. You handle it. We trust you. Just do me a favor and let's get those wireframes for the new client build by tomorrow, okay? A wave of relief, so profound I almost buckled, washed over me. Thank you, Greg. Yes, by tomorrow. Great. Now, get out of here. I walked back to my desk, feeling like I'd just survived a mortar attack. My professional flank was secure. Clarissa's attempt to destroy my career had not only failed, it had backfired. She'd shown her hand, and my boss had just shown me his. I texted Jenna. Greg's on my side. She called him directly. He deleted it. Jenna's reply was instant. Good. Her social campaign is being neutralized by our receipt package, and her professional attack has failed. She's boxed in. She has nowhere left to go. I texted back. So what's next? We just wait for her to self-destruct? A new text from Jenna appeared. No, we're done waiting. We're done reacting. She has escalated this to a professional and legal level, and she has failed. Now, we end it. What are you doing? I typed. I am on my computer, right now. Her reply came. I am filing a formal petition with the King County Probate Court, the same court that shut her down 17 years ago. I am petitioning for an emergency audit of the Anna Price Trust, citing co-trustee misconduct, demonstrable malice, and potential misappropriation of funds. I am scheduling a hearing. This isn't about family drama anymore. This isn't about Facebook posts or who's sad or unstable. This is about paper. This is about math. And on that field, she cannot win. We were not in a grand, wood-paneled courtroom from a movie. We were in a small, fluorescent-lit, third-floor hearing room in the King County Superior Court building. It was functional, beige, and smelled like stale coffee. There was a judge, a court stenographer, and us. My father was there, looking gray and ill, his suit hanging off him. Clarissa sat rigidly beside him, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap, her knuckles were white. They had their own lawyer, a man from their church whose specialty, I later learned, was real estate, not trusts and estates. He looked nervous, shuffling a stack of papers. I sat with Jenna. She walked in, and the entire atmosphere of the room shifted. She was wearing a razor-sharp, navy blue suit and no-nonsense heels. And, as I'd seen in her office, her hands were bare. She placed a sleek, modern briefcase on the table, opened it, and took out a single, surprisingly slim file folder. No binders, no boxes, just the scalpel. The judge, a no-nonsense older woman named Judge Kittering, looked over the petition. "Ms. Harrison," she said, looking over her glasses, "you're alleging co-trustee misconduct and significant misappropriation of funds. Those are serious claims." "They are, Your Honor," Jenna said, standing. Her voice was calm, respectful, and cut through the room like a diamond. "We are here today to petition for an immediate, full-scope forensic audit of the Anna Price Trust, based on preliminary evidence of gross and willful mismanagement." Robert's lawyer stood up, fumbling. "Your Honor, this is a family dispute, not a legal one. Ms. Price," he gestured to Clarissa, "and my client, Mr. Price, have managed this trust honorably for over 2 decades. They have provided a loving home, support, and care for." "Let's talk about that care, shall we?" Jenna said, her voice smooth and polite. "For the past 20 years, my client, Robert Price, has withdrawn the maximum allowable trustee management fee every single quarter." She consulted a page in her folder. "A fee justified, according to his own submitted notes, for providing housing and material support to the beneficiary, his daughter." "And so he should," Clarissa whispered loudly, unable to help herself. "She lived under our roof for years." Jenna didn't look at her. She continued to address the judge. "Your Honor, I am submitting Exhibit A." She slid a document to the court clerk. "This is a certified bank statement from Ms. Madeline Price from the 2-year period immediately following her graduation from college, when she returned to Seattle. It shows 12 consecutive monthly transfers to a joint account held by Robert and Clarissa Price, each noted as rent/expenses. My client was, in fact, paying rent to live in a house her own trust was already paying the mortgage on. The free shelter they were charging the trust for was being paid for, twice, once by the trust and once by my client." The judge looked at the document, then looked at my father over her glasses. Her expression hardened. "Mr. Price?" My father looked at Clarissa. His lawyer sputtered. That was an internal family arrangement, a contribution. An arrangement where they charged both the trust and the beneficiary for the same line item," Jenna said flatly. "Which brings me to Exhibit B." She slid over another small stack of papers. "These are email communications. They are from Ms. Clarissa Price, from her personal email account, to her husband, Mr. Price, at his work address, where they were archived on a company server." Clarissa's head snapped up. Her chalky face went ashen. She looked genuinely, mortally shocked. She had never, in a million years, thought those would see the light of day. "These emails," Jenna continued, "consistently and aggressively urge Mr. Price to seek early disbursement or emergency family reimbursements from the trust, citing various family needs. For example, this one, from April of 2010. Jenna read, her voice flat and devoid of emotion. "Robert, we must get that money from Anna's account. Dylan's tuition bill is due, and I will not have him embarrassed. It's a family need, and this one, from 2 years later. The ski trip to Vail is a family bonding experience. We cannot not go. Use the family fund. That's what it's for." And my personal favorite, from 2013. "Dylan needs a reliable car for his new job. This is a family necessity. This is what that money is for. Take it from the trust." Jenna placed the printouts down. "Your Honor, Dylan Price is not a beneficiary of the Anna Price Trust. My client, Madeline Price, was not invited on these family bonding ski trips. The trust's funds, which were explicitly and legally designated for the sole benefit of Anna Price's daughter, have been repeatedly and systematically misappropriated to fund the education and lifestyle of her stepson." The room was dead silent. Clarissa looked like she was going to be sick. Robert's lawyer was looking at his own clients as if he'd never seen them before. The judge looked at the emails. She looked at the bank statement. She looked at my father for a long, cold, silent minute. "Ms. Harrison," the judge said, her voice sharp as broken glass, "your petition for a full audit is granted. Effective immediately, I am ordering a complete 10-year forensic audit of the Anna Price Trust to be conducted by a neutral, court-appointed third party." She looked at Clarissa and Robert's lawyer. Her eyes narrowed. "And you will provide unrestricted access to every statement, every receipt, and every transfer. Am I clear?" "Your Honor, my clients—" "Am I clear?" the judge snapped. "Yes, Your Honor," he mumbled. "Furthermore," the judge continued, looking at Jenna, "I see you've also filed a petition to have Mr. Price removed as co-trustee, citing gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty." "We have, Your Honor," Jenna said. "I am taking that petition under advisement, pending the results of the audit. But what I see here, Mr. Price, this is deeply, deeply troubling." Clarissa made a small, strangled sound, like a dying bird. The audit took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of the most agonizing, static-filled silence I've ever lived through. I went to work. I designed user interfaces. I went home. I waited. Clarissa, however, was not silent. She had lost spectacularly in the legal arena, so she retreated to the one she could control. The court of public, spiritual opinion. She went into full-blown panic mode. She organized an emergency prayer circle at her house. My Aunt Carol, my new, highly conflicted spy on the inside, went and sent me a full report. Clarissa, apparently, had wept in her living room, surrounded by 20 women from her church. She told them all that her family was under spiritual attack. She never used my name. She didn't have to. "We are being attacked," she sobbed, according to my aunt, "by a dark, ungrateful, and confused spirit, fueled by a bitter, godless outsider. They are trying to tear our family apart. They are trying to take our home. All we have ever done is love. All we have ever done is provide. And now, the devil is using this person to try and destroy us. We need you to pray for us. Pray for protection from this evil." The rumors spread like wildfire. "Did you hear? Madeline Price is suing her own father. She's trying to get them kicked out of their house. She's after the inheritance, after all Clarissa did for that girl. Can you imagine the ingratitude?" In Clarissa's final, desperate narrative, I was a greedy, monstrous changeling, punishing my saintly, unsuspecting father and my patient, long-suffering stepmother. She was painting herself as the victim, right up until the very end. Then, the audit results came back. They were delivered to Jenna. She called me at my office. Her voice was cold as winter. "We have it," she said. "It's a bloodbath." It wasn't just the management fees or Dylan's tuition. It was a pattern. Dozens and dozens of suspicious transfers, as the auditor called them. Small amounts, a few hundred here, 1,000 there, moved systematically from the trust into Robert and Clarissa's joint checking account. The notes were always vague. Family expenses, household needs, reimbursement. "This," Jenna said, her voice tight with a lawyer's fury, "is not mismanagement. This is common theft. It's a clear, criminal, multi-year breach of fiduciary duty. We have him. We have them. Cold." "So what now?" I asked, my heart pounding. "We go back to the judge? She'll remove him." "She'll do more than that," Jenna said. the judge would almost certainly remove him, force an immediate sale of the house to repay the trust, and very possibly refer the case to the district attorney for criminal charges. It would be public and catastrophic for him. I thought about my father, about the shell of a man I saw in court, the coward, the enabler, but still, my father. Or, Jenna said, her voice softening just a fraction, as if she knew what I was thinking. We offer him an exit, a way to avoid the public humiliation, but not the consequences, a way to do the one thing your mother wanted, which was to protect you, even if he's 20 years too late. This was Jenna's final, brilliant move. She wasn't just a lawyer, she was a strategist. She drafted a settlement offer, a legal document. It was simple, it was brutal, and it was, in its own way, merciful. 1. Robert would voluntarily, and immediately, resign as co-trustee of the Anna Price Trust. 2. He would sign a legal notarized admission of the funds he had misappropriated. 3. He would agree to a repayment plan, drawn from his own retirement accounts and his pension, to make the trust whole over a period of 10 years. And in exchange? I asked. In exchange, Jenna said, we do not petition the court for a forced, immediate public sale of the house. The house, which is an asset of the trust, will remain under your control when you become sole trustee at age 30. He can, in effect, pay rent to you. The repayment plan protects the house. It gives him a sliver of dignity. It's a very, very narrow path. Madeline, but it's the only one he has left that doesn't end in total ruin. My father received the emailed offer from Jenna. He didn't call his lawyer. He didn't call Clarissa. He called me. He asked to meet at a Denny's, a neutral, horribly lit restaurant on the highway, halfway between my apartment and their house. He was already there when I walked in, sitting in a cracked red vinyl booth, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug. He looked like he had aged 20 years in 2 weeks. Maddie, he said, his voice hoarse. Dad. I sat down. The table was sticky. This thing from your lawyer, he stammered, his hands shaking so hard the coffee sloshed. The offer. It's brutal, Madeline. It's generous, Dad, and you know it. He looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed and pleading, and he did the one thing I wasn't prepared for, the one thing that was his last, pathetic weapon. He started to cry. Please, Maddie girl, he whispered, tears rolling down his gray, stubbled cheeks. Please, don't do this. Don't destroy us. Don't destroy me. She's beside herself. She hasn't slept in days. This will ruin us. It will ruin everything we've built. He was begging. He was pleading for me to stop. For the family. Stop, I said. My voice was quiet. But it was hard. It was the hardest it had ever been. Just stop. Where were you? Where were you when she was calling me a bottomless pit of need and an orphan in my own home? Where were you when she threw out Mom's hospital bracelet and called it trash? Where were you for 20 years when you told me we couldn't afford a plane ticket? While you were using my mother's money to take her son skiing? Where were you, Dad? I didn't know, he choked out. She handled the finances. She told me what to sign. She said it was all okay. I didn't. You didn't look, I said, my voice flat. You didn't want to look. It was easier for you not to look. I reached into my bag. I pulled out one document. It wasn't the audit. It wasn't the settlement. It was a single, laminated page, a copy of a page from my mother's will, the original trust document. I slid it across the sticky table. You signed this, Dad. You read this. You agreed to it, 20 years ago. I had taken a yellow highlighter to one single passage, a passage my mother had written herself, not in legalese, but in her own, clear, powerful words. He squinted, reading it through his tears. This trust is for the sole and exclusive benefit of my daughter, Madeline Anna Price. It is to protect her. to provide for her, and to ensure her independence. If any trustee, including her father, Robert Price, is found to be using these funds for their own benefit, or for the benefit of any new spouse or stepchildren, my daughter has the full and absolute right, upon her majority, to remove them from all stewardship, no exceptions. This is my will. He read the words, any new spouse, or stepchildren. My mother had seen it all coming. She had seen Clarissa before Clarissa was even in the picture. He slumped back against the booth, a broken, empty man. The fight was gone. She knew, he whispered. She knew, I said. I pulled the settlement papers out of my bag, the ones Jenna had prepared, along with a pen. Jenna gave you an exit. Dad, this is it. Sign the resignation. Agree to pay back what you stole, and you get to stay in your house, my house. That's the deal. He stared at the papers for a long, silent minute. The only sound was the clatter of dishes from the kitchen and a waitress yelling, "Order up!" He picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so badly he could barely hold it. He uncapped it. As he pressed the pen to the signature line, my phone, sitting on the table between us, buzzed. I glanced at it. It was a forwarded text from my Aunt Carol. She had just gotten it in the Price family group chat. It was from Dylan, sent seconds ago. Mom just called me. Dad is meeting with Madeline right now at some diner. That bitch is forcing him to sign something to steal the house. She's attacking them. She's attacking our whole family. I looked at the text. I looked at my father's hand, trembling as he signed his name, giving up control of the last piece of my mother's life. Outside, Clarissa was still fighting, still spinning her story, still performing. But in here, in the quiet, fluorescent-lit diner, the war was already over. My father's signature on that settlement was not an end. It was just the signal for Clarissa's final, and most desperate, campaign. She was furious. She was a general whose king had just surrendered while she still had, in her mind, an army, robbed of her legal standing and her financial control. She retreated to the only battlefield she had left, Facebook. She began a blitz, long, rambling, tear-stained posts, published at 2 a.m. She never used my name. She was too clever for that. I was the betrayal. I was the child who chose money over a father's love. She wrote about the sacred bond of family versus the poison of outside influences. She wrote long parables about loyal children who stay and lost children who come back only to destroy. She posted photo after photo of Dylan, praising his unwavering loyalty and his good Christian heart. Every post about him was a knife aimed at me. The comments, at first, were a flood of support from her church choir and her book club. "We are praying for you. Clarissa. The devil is busy. Stay strong against this attack." But Clarissa had made a fatal error. She assumed the only battle being fought was the one on social media. She had forgotten about the one in probate court. The whispers she started were about family drama. The whispers Jenna started were about financial crimes. Jenna, as part of her legal due diligence, had sent a certified, neutral, and deeply factual summary of the audit, the one performed by the court's own appointee, to the executor of my grandfather's will, the one who had originally funded my mother's trust. This executor happened to be a very quiet, very respected elder in a neighboring and influential church. From there, the real story began to leak. Not the juicy, emotional story of a slap and a family feud, a different, less glamorous one. The story of a co-trustee systematically diverting funds from an orphan's trust to pay for her own son's tuition and ski trips. Suddenly, the spiritual attack Clarissa was sobbing about started to look a lot like a court-ordered repayment plan. The invitations Clarissa lived for began to dry up. The dinners, the charity boards, the senior pastor's wife, who used to have coffee with her every Tuesday, was suddenly too busy. The annual women's spiritual retreat, the one Clarissa was scheduled to lead, was abruptly postponed indefinitely due to scheduling conflicts. The social pillar she had built her entire identity on was crumbling. Not with a bang, but with 1,000 silent, polite unsubscribes. The consequences were not just social, they were practical. Dylan, in the midst of this, was up for a major promotion at his logistics company. It involved a move to a senior role, a new office, and a significant pay raise. All it required was a standard, high-level background check. The background check came back with a flag. Not a criminal one, but a complex, messy, and deeply undesirable one. It noted that he had been a major financial beneficiary of disbursements from a trust that is currently under formal court investigation for misappropriation of funds. It didn't say he did anything illegal. It just said he was entangled in a massive, litigious financial mess. Companies, especially in logistics and finance, hate messy. They hate court investigation. The promotion was quietly, indefinitely, put on hold. And then, the family itself began to turn. While Clarissa was busy broadcasting her vague parables to her older friends, my cousin, Sarah, my aunt's daughter, who was my age, was in the younger, extended Price family chat, the one I had no idea existed. Clarissa, in her panic, had been sending unhinged, manipulative texts to Dylan and my aunt, trying to coordinate her story. Tell them she was screaming. Tell them she's unstable. Tell them she's always been this way. My aunt, trying to defend her brother, had forwarded them to Sarah, and Sarah, who had her own long history with Clarissa's brand of family, silently took screenshots of the most manipulative messages, and she posted them in the cousins' chat. "This is what Aunt Clarissa is actually saying," she wrote. "FYI, this is what's really happening." My phone was silent. I was not part of this, but a quiet digital mutiny was happening on my behalf. The screenshot circulated, the narrative, Clarissa's carefully constructed masterpiece of my instability, was punctured by her own, frantic, behind-the-scenes stage direction. The tide of sympathy, at least with the generation that mattered, was turning. While their world was quietly imploding, mine was blooming. At Northwind, I buried myself in my work. It was my sanctuary. I wasn't the difficult one or the orphan. I was the team lead. My ideas were good. My logic was sound. I was, for the first time in my life, judged solely on my own merit. Our team's project, the human-centric redesign of a major healthcare app, was submitted for a national design award, and we won. It was a huge, career-defining moment. My boss, Greg, announced it in the all-hands meeting. My team, my brilliant, funny, slightly weird team, cheered so loudly my face turned red. That Friday, they threw me a party. It was just pizza and cheap beer in the office break room after 5 p.m., but it felt more real than any catered party Clarissa had ever thrown. They gave me a ridiculous 3D printed trophy and a card signed by everyone. "You're a rock star." Madeline, my lead developer, wrote. "Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." No one there asked me about my family. No one told me I needed to forgive and forget. No one told me that family is family. They just saw me, celebrated me, and argued with me about whether the free beer should have been an IPA or a lager. It was the sanest, most normal family dinner I'd ever had. That weekend, I drove to Portland. Jenna had insisted. "We're celebrating," she said. Her penthouse was, as always, an oasis of calm. But this time, it was different. It was warm. There was someone else there. A woman with kind eyes and a warm, genuine laugh, who was bustling around the kitchen. "Madeline, this is my wife, Elise," Jenna said, taking my coat. "She's been dying to meet you. She's making your mother's recipe for cacio e pepe." I stared. "Her recipe?" "Oh, yes," Elise said, coming over to give me a hug. A real, warm hug. Jenna has had Anna's old, battered recipe notebook for 20 years. I've been working my way through it. Your mother, apparently, believed there was no problem that butter and a truly offensive amount of garlic couldn't solve. For the next 2 days, I didn't talk about court, or audits, or Clarissa. I sat in a warm, sun-drenched kitchen with Jenna and Elise. We drank wine. We cooked. I helped Elise decipher my mother's chaotic, paint-smeared handwriting. I laughed. A real full-bodied laugh, as Jenna told stories about my mother trying to use this exact recipe to win over a grumpy landlord. It was normal. It was a life I didn't even know I was allowed to want. On Sunday, before I left, Jenna sat me down at the dining table. She was back in her professional mode, but the warmth was still there. "One last thing," she said. She pulled a single envelope from her briefcase. The audit was comprehensive. It covered the main trust, but there was something else, something separate. She slid the envelope over. "Your mother was a strategist. She knew the main trust would be a target. She knew your father would be a weakness. So she set this up, the same day, with just me, a much smaller, entirely independent fund. It wasn't tied to health, education, and maintenance. It wasn't for your upkeep. The legal language is very specific." I opened the envelope. It was another fund, and I read the designated purpose. "For the sole use of Madeline Anna Price, to be used for life-building experiences, for travel, for art, for inspiration, or for the creation of a home of her own, for her joy, not her survival." I looked at Jenna, my eyes brimming. "For my joy." "She wanted to make sure you had a way to build a life that had nothing to do with them," Jenna said, her own voice thick. "She wanted to give you a head start, a get-out-of-jail-free card, that they could never, ever touch." I drove back to Seattle, my mother's final gift in my bag. I didn't go back to my rental apartment. I went to a scheduled open house in Pioneer Square. It was a loft. It was on the top floor of a 100-year-old brick building. It had massive, west-facing windows, exposed brick walls, and old-growth timber beams. It was 200 square feet of raw, beautiful, sun-drenched space. It had a small, partitioned-off area with a huge sink that would be a perfect art studio. I used the Joy Fund for the down payment, every cent of it. 2 months later, I was moving in. Clarissa heard about it. Of course, she always did. Her information network was vast. I knew she'd heard, because a new Facebook post appeared. It was a picture of the suburban house, the one I now technically owned a controlling interest in. "Some people," she wrote, "value square footage and trendy neighborhoods. Others value the shared memories and the sacred. Humble walls that held a family together. A house is not a home." I looked at the post, I looked at the caption, and I looked at the likes count. 7. One of them was Dylan. One was my father. The other 5 were distant relatives I'd never heard of. Her army was gone. Her audience had left the theater. The tide had finally, permanently, gone out. My father, I heard from my aunt, had stopped going to church. He'd stopped going to his Friday night group with his retired colleagues. He mostly just sat. He sat in the living room of the big but quiet house, watching television. He was paying his rent to the trust every month. He was a ghost in his own curated museum. Dylan, however, made one last, desperate move. I was unpacking boxes in my new loft. The buzzer rang. I didn't recognize the name, so I just buzzed him up. It was Dylan. He was standing in my new, bright hallway, looking pale and sweaty and furious. This is where you live?" he stammered, looking past me at the high ceilings and the massive windows. "What do you want, Dylan?" "You need to stop this," he said, pushing past me, uninvited. "You need to call off your godmother." "Call her off? This isn't a dog. Dylan, it's a court order, one my father agreed to." "You don't understand," he said, his voice rising, cracking with a panic I'd never heard from him. This legal shit, it's messing everything up. My job. They're looking at me. They're asking questions. This is my career. Mom is a wreck. She doesn't get out of bed. Dad just sits in his chair. You are destroying them. You are destroying this family." He was standing in the middle of my home, a home my mother had bought for me, a home I had made. And he was standing there, his face red, demanding I take responsibility for the consequences of their actions. He was trying to hand the emotional bill back to me. I looked at him, the boy who got the new car, the boy who went on the ski trips, the boy who stood by and lied, who called me crazy while I had a red handprint on my face. I walked to my new, solid wood front door. I opened it. "No, Dylan," I said, my voice so quiet it scared him. "You're wrong. I didn't destroy the family. You all just finally have to pay for it." He stared at me, his mouth open. "Get out of my house," I said. He left. I closed the door. That New Year's Eve, there were no resorts. There were no lonely nights watching the ball drop by myself. My loft was warm. It smelled like garlic and rosemary. Jenna and Elise were there. My old roommate from Chicago, who had moved to Seattle, was there. My boss, Greg, and his wife were there. We were crowded around my small dining table, eating pizza off paper plates. There were no performances. No one was trying to impress anyone. We were just there. At midnight, we stood on my small balcony, overlooking the lights of the city. Someone set off fireworks from a rooftop nearby, bright bursts of red and gold. Jenna, her arm around Elise, raised her glass to me. "To Anna," she said, her voice soft. I raised my glass back. I wasn't the sulky one. I wasn't the moody one. I wasn't a problem to be solved or a ghost to be erased. It was the first New Year's Eve of my entire life that I felt it. The feeling of a chair, at a table, that was meant for me. Not a seat I had to ask for, or fight for, or be grateful for. Just mine. It was late spring when the final letter arrived. It wasn't a text. It wasn't an email. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope from the King County Superior Court, addressed to me, Madeline Price, and a courtesy copy to my lawyer. I opened it. The legalese was dense, but the conclusion was simple. The court had officially approved the settlement. My father's resignation as co-trustee was accepted, the audit's findings were filed, and I, as of my 30th birthday, which was 2 weeks away, was approved as the sole and executive trustee of the Anna Price Trust. It was done. All of it. The power was mine. I met Jenna at her club. She was sitting in a leather armchair, a glass of mineral water in her hand, barehanded. "So," she said, her voice calm, "the final move. You have 2 options, as I see it. Option 1, she said, ticking a finger in the air. The clean cut. We petition for the immediate, forced sale of the house. The trust is made whole. The misappropriated funds are returned in one lump sum from the sale. You take your money, you're free, and you never have to speak to any of them again. It's clean, it's brutal, but it's final." She paused. Option 2 is messier. It's a life estate, or a formal tenancy. We allow your father to live in the house for the remainder of his life. As a tenant, he pays rent to the trust. You become his landlord. I processed this. And Clarissa? That's the mess, Jenna said. He would be the tenant, but she would be there, living in your asset. But we could make the lease conditional, and the conditions would be written in iron. I thought about it for a long time. Forcing the sale felt like victory, yes, but it also felt like Clarissa's brand of cruelty. It felt like destruction. My mother hadn't wanted to destroy my father. She had wanted to protect me from his weakness. I choose the middle path, I said. He can stay, but on our terms, my terms. Jenna nodded, a slow, proud smile touching her lips. I thought you might... It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a text. It was a legal document, sent via certified mail to Robert Price, and a courtesy copy to Clarissa Price. It was from me, in my new official capacity as trustee. It outlined the new structure. The property at their address was now fully, legally, an asset of the trust, which I alone controlled. Mr. Robert Price was being offered a formal lease agreement. The rent was far below market value, a symbolic, manageable sum drawn from his pension. But the lease was conditional. It was contingent on a separate, Attached addendum. That addendum, a spousal acknowledgement of trust terms, required Clarissa Price's signature. It was a simple document. It just required her to sign her name to two statements. First, that she acknowledged the findings of the court-ordered audit, confirming that funds from the trust had been improperly diverted for non-beneficiary use. Second, that she agreed to permanently and irrevocably forfeit any and all financial say, control, or access related to the property. She could live there, as a guest of the tenant, but she had no rights. She was, in financial terms, a ghost. Clarissa's reaction was predictable. She didn't respond to the legal letter. She responded to her network. My phone, which had been quiet for months, lit up with forwarded voice notes from my Aunt Carol. It was Clarissa, but not the weak, sobbing victim from the church group. This was Clarissa enraged. It was a 5-minute-long screaming, hysterical rant. "She's evicting us. Can you believe it? She is kicking her own father out of his home. After everything we did for that girl. She is a monster. She is destroying what her sainted mother left behind." She conveniently, skillfully, ignored the fact that her own theft was what had triggered the audit. She ignored the fact that I was offering a solution other than eviction. In her narrative, my mercy was reframed as her execution. But Robert did not respond with rage. He responded with a phone call to Jenna's office. He requested a meeting. He said he would sign whatever was necessary. He came alone. He sat at the massive mahogany conference table where this had all begun, looking gray and shrunken. Jenna slid the two documents across the gleaming wood, the lease and the spousal addendum. He read the lease. He read the addendum, the part detailing Clarissa's acknowledgement of misuse. He paused for a long time, his hand trembling. "She won't sign this," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Then the lease is void," Jenna said, her voice neutral. "And the petition for a forced sale is filed tomorrow morning. The choice is yours, Robert, but it's no longer hers." My father's eyes, red-rimmed and exhausted, met mine. He was looking for an exit, one last time. He was looking for me to save him. I just looked back at him. I didn't say a word. The silence was my answer. He took the pen Jenna offered. He signed the lease agreement. Then he took the addendum, the one for Clarissa. He stared at her name, then at the signature line below it, and he signed it himself. I always just signed for her," he mumbled, mostly to himself, his voice thick. She just told me what to do. Sign this, Robert. We need this, Robert. She handled all the finances. She said she had it all taken care of." He looked at me, a lifetime of cowardice and regret in his watery eyes. "I'm sorry, Maddie girl. I am just so sorry." He pushed the papers back. It was done. Clarissa, of course, refused to attend the meeting. She had refused to sign, but when my father came home that night, with his signed, notarized copies, she must have realized she had been bypassed. The deal was done. Her signature was not required for the lease, only for her acknowledgement. By refusing, she had simply opted out of the process. But the outcome was the same. She was firewalled. She had lost. That night, the banging on my loft door was so loud it shook the walls. It wasn't a knock. It was a pounding, a frantic, furious battery. I looked through the peephole. It was Clarissa. Her face was a contorted, blotchy, red mask of rage. I took a deep, steadying breath. I reached into my pocket, found my phone, and pressed the audio record button. I slipped it into the back pocket of my jeans. I didn't open the door all the way. I opened it just 3 inches, keeping the chain on, and stepped partially into the hallway, my body blocking the entrance to my home. "Clarissa," I said, my voice calm. "You need to leave. You are trespassing." "You bitch!" she shrieked, the word echoing in the concrete hallway, loud enough for my neighbors to hear. You betrayed your father. You sided with her." She spat the word. meaning Jenna. Against your own blood. After all I did. After I raised you, you are trying to destroy us. She did the thing. The familiar, controlling, physical act of dominance. She lunged, her hand shooting through the gap, grabbing my wrist, hard, her fingernails dug into my skin. You will not do this to us. You will not. Let go of her arm, Clarissa. Jenna's voice, it was cold steel. Clarissa let go of my arm as if she'd been burned, stumbling back. Jenna was standing at the top of the stairwell, not even winded. She must have been waiting in her car on the street, anticipating this exact escalation. She walked slowly, calmly, down the hall toward us, her briefcase in her hand. She looked like a general arriving at a battlefield where the victory was already assured. She stopped 5 feet away. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were locked on Clarissa. Clarissa, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. You are currently assaulting my client, on video, in her own building. You are trespassing. Madeline has you on audio, and I am a direct, first-person witness. If you do not turn around and walk out of this building right now, I will call the police, and we will have you removed for assault. You can't, Clarissa shrieked, her voice cracking. This is family. This is a crime, Jenna said, and tomorrow morning, if you so much as text her, I will file for a civil anti-harassment protection order, and after that, I will file a lawsuit against you, personally, for slander and libel, using your Facebook posts and your email to Northwind as Exhibit A, and after that, Jenna took one step closer. I will personally ensure that the full, unredacted, 20-year audit of the trust, the one detailing every single dollar you stole for Dylan's ski trips, is made public, filed with the court, and sent as a courtesy copy to every single elder on your church's board. You are afraid of losing your house. You should be afraid of losing your entire world. Are we clear? Clarissa stared. Her mouth opened and closed. This wasn't a fight about family or feelings. This was a fight about public shame and financial ruin. For the first time, she was truly, visibly, utterly terrified. She looked at me, cornered, her eyes wild. She pulled out her last, final weapon. She burst into tears, real, ugly, gasping sobs. You're killing him, she sobbed, pointing a shaking finger at me. You are killing your father. This legal. This is killing him. He is a broken man. You did this. I looked at her. All the anger, all the years of pain, just evaporated. I just felt tired and free. No, Clarissa, I said, my voice quiet. You've been killing my mother's words for 20 years. I'm just finally letting them breathe. Jenna stepped forward, between us. We're done here, but there is one last thing. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a single, sealed envelope. It was old, the paper thick. This was with the others, in the firebox. I held it back. It wasn't for Madeline. It wasn't for the court. Your mother wrote it for you. Clarissa looked at the envelope as if it were a snake. Jenna handed it to her. The front, in my mother's strong, familiar script, read, To my daughter's future, to the woman who will raise her, if I am gone. Clarissa, her hands shaking, tore it open. It wasn't long. I stepped out into the hall, reading it over her shoulder. My dearest unknown. It began. I do not know who you are. I pray you are kind. I pray that you love my daughter, that you see her light. I thank you, from the bottom of my soul, if you are truly, genuinely loving her. But I must be clear. Her spirit, her art, and her truth are her own. Her inheritance is her independence. These things are not a threat to you. They are not a judgment of you. They are her birthright. If you see her joy as a challenge to your own, then you are the one who is lacking. Not her. Love her, but do not try to own her. Do not try to erase me. I am not your enemy. I am just her mother. Clarissa's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the paper. She read the first half. She read the part about her inheritance, And not a threat. She couldn't finish it. She couldn't process the grace. She couldn't process the fact that the ghost she had been fighting for 20 years wasn't judging her, wasn't accusing her. It was simply a boundary she had spent 2 decades violating, day after day. She shoved the letter, unfinished, back into Jenna's hand. I. She couldn't speak. She turned. Her shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen. And she fled. She half ran, half stumbled down the hallway, not looking back. The aftermath was quiet. The war was over. The title deed for the house in the suburbs was transferred, quietly, into the sole possession of the Anna Price Trust, which I now managed. My father pays his rent. It's a modest amount, drawn from his pension. He started going to therapy. He calls me. Sometimes. We talk. About the weather. About my work. It's fragile, but it's not a lie. Clarissa moved out 2 months after that. She took her own retirement pension and moved into a small, sterile 2-bedroom apartment complex across town. Her Facebook is now mostly just pictures of flowers and inspirational quotes about new beginnings. In my loft, one rainy Saturday, I set up my camera on a tripod. I sat in my favorite armchair, the sun streaming in, and I recorded a video. I told the whole story, from the magic bars to the slap, from the shoebox to the audit, from the hospital bracelet to the final letter. I told it all, just for me. When I was done, I saved the file onto a new, encrypted hard drive. I put the hard drive, and all of my mother's letters, into the gray fireproof box. I locked it, not to hide it, but to keep it safe. The next New Year's Eve, I was on the roof of my building. It was freezing, the air sharp and clean, but the sky was clear. Jenna was there, her arm around Elise. My friends from work were there, the ones who had become my real family. We were passing around a bottle of good champagne, drinking it from plastic cups. As the countdown began, the fireworks started over the Space Needle. Bright, beautiful, defiant explosions of light. I looked up at them. I imagined my mother, not as a sad ghost, not as a victim, not as an empty chair at a party Clarissa had planned. I saw her as the architect, the woman who saw it all coming, the woman who left me a map, a key, and a fund for joy. I was wearing gloves, a simple wool pair, against the cold. I stood at the railing, watching the sky ignite, and then, slowly, deliberately, I pulled them off, my bare hands feeling the cold. I raised my plastic cup to the city. I had survived, and I had won. Not the war to destroy a family, but the war to stop them from destroying me. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to connect and hear your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it some extra love by hitting that hype button to help this story be heard by more people.